Good afternoon, councillors and aldermen. You're very welcome to today's meeting, the July full council meeting. I'm going to pass to the Chief Executive, who will take us through the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, members. To all members of Derry City and Strabane District Council, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Council to be held remotely Thursday, 28th of July at 4 o'clock. Alderman Breslin.
Here, John.
Alderman Devaney.
Here, John.
Alderman Guy. Alderman Hussey.
Online, John.
Alderman Carrigan.
Here, John.
Alderman McCready.
Here.
Alderman Ramsey.
Apologies, John, for Alderman Ramsey.
Alderman Thompson.
Here, John.
Alderman Wark.
Here, John.
Councillor Jason Barr.
Apologies, please.
Apologies for Jason, John.
Thank you. Councillor Raymond Barr.
Here, John.
Councillor John Boyle.
Yep, here.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Carr.
Here, John.
Councillor Cusick.
Here, John.
Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Donnelly.
And Shaw.
Councillor Doyle.
Here, John.
Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Edwards.
Here, John.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Ferguson.
Here, John.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor Gallagher.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Heaney.
Here. That's Councillor Harkin.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney. Councillor Jackson.
And Shaw.
Councillor Kelly.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Logue.
And Shaw.
Councillor McGinley.
Shaw, John.
Councillor McGowan.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Maguire. Councillor McHugh.
Apologies for Councillor McKee, John.
Thank you. Councillor McKeever. Councillor McKinney.
Apologies, John.
Councillor Mooney.
Here, John.
Councillor O'Neill.
John.
Councillor Riley. Councillor Shinoy Barr.
Here, John.
Councillor Tierney.
Here, John, and can I also give apologies for Councillor Dobbins, please?
Thank you. Members, I'll just check over a couple that may have come in. Alderman Guy.
Here, John.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming. Councillor Heaney. Councillor Maguire.
Apologies
Councillor.
for Heaney. Sorry, John. He's traveling. He's not going to be here.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Riley. Thank you, members. Back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I'll just read the statement for remote meetings. I would like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to be filmed and to the use and storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council privacy notice is available on the Council website. So thank you, members, and you're very welcome to today's meeting. To begin with, I have a number of items for Chairperson's business, and I have a number of people who have contacted myself over the course of the last week to request that they raise items as well. So if you bear with me, I will begin by condolences, and I would like to begin by offering condolences to Councillor Rory Mckee and our former Mayor and MLA for West Tyrone, Melissa Mckee. I was nearly going to refer him to Councillor, on the sad passing of his brother Hilary. Hilary was a great community activist right across West Tyrone. So I would like to request that the council acknowledge that and write a letter of condolences to the Mckee family. So thank you, and I'm going to bring in Councillor Michaela Boyle on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and just on behalf of the Sinn Féin party, we too send our condolences to Melissa Mckee, MLA, and Councillor Rory Mckee on the sad passing and sudden passing of their brother and uncle Hilary, and condolences to his wife Marie and daughters and son and the wider family. As you said, Hilary was a well-known individual across Castlederg, Strabane, West Tyrone and beyond. He was very much part and parcel of the community within Castlederg. He was a much loved husband, brother, father and grandfather, and I know he'll be sorely missed by those who loved him and the community that he came from and helped support and worked within. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Tierney and then Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the SDLP group, just to join with yourself and Councillor Boyle, to pass on our condolences to both Melissa Mckee and Councillor Rory Mckee and the wider family. I didn't know Hilary Mckee at all, but speaking to some of our members within the Castlederg area, they tell me that he was a strong community activist and was always someone who was there to lend a hand and to support his community. And I've no doubt that the community in Castlederg will feel his loss over the coming weeks and months. So just on behalf of our group, Mayor, to pass on our condolences on the loss of Melissa's brother and Rory's uncle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And like previous speakers, I would like to express solidarity and condolences to Melissa and Rory on the loss of their loved one. Chair, when community activists pass away, there's a huge void in the community. And Chair, on that note, I would wonder if you could also allow me to include the loss of Aggie Webb on the top of the hill, who like Hilary, was an active community, a pillar of the community, and a very committed community activist, and never sought any recognition or blew her own trumpet regarding that. And I was just wondering if we could include that, and the council could write to your family on her loss. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely, Councillor Donnelly, and condolences to the Webb family, and I'm happy to include that as well. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to express our condolences, the Alliance Party's condolences to both Rory and Melissa on the passing, and to the wider Mckee family, as well as to the Webb family. Like previous speakers have said, community activists are a huge part of the community, and there is a void whenever they do pass, and my sincere condolences to both families. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. And just on behalf of AINTU, I just do record our condolences to the Mckee and Webb families. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Hussey.
Thank you. Obviously, I knew Hilary quite well. Many's a run one we had, as you will understand. We were diametrically opposed, but that black hat was a regular sight about Castlederg. Naturally enough, I extend condolences on the personal bereavements that members have had. As I say, Hilary and I fell out on many occasions, but it is sad, as people say, when somebody active in the community does pass. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. And that brings me on to the second item of condolences. And I wish to offer my condolences, Mayor, to the family and to Daphne and the wider family circle of Lord David Trimble. I know that his passing has been marked. We have opened a book of condolences this week, and I would encourage as many people to come in and sign it as they can. David Trimble was, in terms of peace and in terms of the Good Friday Agreement. He worked very hard on the ground to ensure that that happened and took many chances that maybe he paid for in different ways. But I would certainly like to record my condolences to his wider family and to the Ulster Unionist family on their loss at this time. The book of condolences is also open online, so I would just like to have that recorded as well. I'm just going to pause to see if, yep. Alderman Guy and then Alderman Devaney. Yep, go ahead. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. And I also, on behalf of the Ulster Unionist Party in Foyle, would like to pass on my condolences to Daphne and the 4 children. David obviously took a lot of risks, as we know, but he had a vision for peace. It didn't go down too well with some people. As I say, it probably cost him his position, but he was steadfast that that's the way we needed to move forward, and we needed brave men at the time to take decisions like that there. So I'd like to thank you, Mayor, just for starting up the book of condolences. It was very much appreciated. Thank you, and thanks everybody for the words. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And look, on the passing of Lord Trumbull, our party would like to pass on our condolences, extended condolences to the Trumbull family and the wider extended family, and to those who have been bereaved, mentioned earlier on, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor, and sympathy to Daphne, to Richard, Vicky, Sarah, and Nicholas, and the wider family circle, obviously. And thanks to yourself and Council for initiating the Book of Condolence. David and myself are had quite a few coterminous occasions, namely the Forum 96 to 98, and of course the Assembly, we were coterminous from 98 to 2007. Most people will have seen the Noel Thompson interview and the fraught nature of it. David was that sort of a character, undoubtedly. And Noel Thompson wasn't the only one who found that sort of engagement. I remember an occasion when David and I were having
Yeah. Can I check if members can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
hear you,
Yep.
Derek.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's Derek we lost. Okay, thank you. Look, we'll come back to Derek and we'll move on then to Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor, and I think it's fitting and right that this council send condolences to the wider Trumbull family. I admit David a number of times as a politics student way back, and you know it's easy to forget the contribution that he made, given that you know where we are now, alongside people, of course, like John Hume and Seamus Mallon. And for, I suppose, students of history and people who have great interest in our political history here, like myself, it'll be something that's keenly felt because he was one of the most outspoken politicians and regular, I suppose, faces that we saw and heard on the radio when we were growing up through all the difficulties that we had. So it's only right that we send our condolences to his family today. And thank you for opening the Book of Condolence, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Tierney.
Mayor, thank you. On behalf of the SDLP, we also send our condolences to the wider Trumbull and UUP families on the sad passing of David Trumbull. As a young nationalist, growing up at that particular time around the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, I don't think I ever really understood the work in which David Trumbull and the pressure in which he came under to deliver the signing of the Good Friday Agreement and the commitment around it. It was only after his passing, when watching the news, that you actually understood the pressure that the man was coming under. But he done it, I believe, for the right reasons, and many of us and our children now have the benefit of growing up in a peace which was really hard fought for. David Trimble obviously worked very closely with the leadership of the SDLP at that time, and won the Nobel Peace Prize with our former leader, John Hume, which was a very fitting tribute for both men. I spoke to someone the other day who told me that in those negotiations leading up to the Good Friday Agreement, David Trimble would often say, not doable, not doable, not doable. And when it became doable, in his mind, he went full throttle at it to make sure that it was done. And I think that shows the political leadership that he'd offered not only to the unionist community, but to the entire community across the north during a very, very difficult time. And there's no doubt that David Trimble and the political leaders of his time were extremely brave men in very, very difficult times. And we pass on our condolences to the wider family. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. And Councillor Boyle, I'm going to bring Alderman Hussey back in prior to yourself. Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you, Mayor. My laptop went down there, so I've gone onto the iPad. I'm not sure where it got to, but I was about to relate a story with regard to David, and most people will know that I constantly refer to myself as a representative rather than a politician, and I just want to relate how that actually came about. It was an occasion when I found it necessary, because of disagreements, to step down as Deputy Speaker at the Assembly. And David and I had a tense private conversation, after which we agreed to differ with mutual respect. As I was about to leave the room, David said, "Derek, you have the luxury of being a representative. I, on the other hand, I do respect that, but I have to be a politician." And David Trimble was a politician. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. On behalf of the Sinn Féin Party, we also send our deepest condolences to Lord Trimble's wife, Daphne, his 4 children and the wider family circle, and also indeed to the Ulster Unionist family. David Trimble, as others have said, made a significant contribution in terms of the Good Friday Agreement and to the peace process, something I'm sure his family are very proud of to this day. And just to say, Mayor, we should not underestimate the work that he and other political figures in this city achieved in bringing about peace. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to, on behalf of the Alliance Party, offer our condolences to the Trimble family and the passing of Lord David Trimble, and extend that to Daphne and his 4 children and the Ulster Unionist family. He was a figure, being a child from the Good Friday Agreement, not understanding fully the struggles he'd gone through. It's a name and a figure that will always be recognised as one who was the reason why now me and my children and further generations will live in peace. So just our condolences to the Trimble family and to the wider Ulster Unionist family. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I appreciate all those words, and they will be recorded. Just to move on now, and I'm moving on to congratulations. And I'm going to take the next 2 items together because I believe that they really complemented each other and related to each other and showcased our city and district in a tremendous light over the course of the past week and a half. And that is the Foyle Cup and the Foyle Maritime Festival. I think nobody could fail to see the buzz that was around our city and district over the course of the last week and a half. The Foyle Cup absolutely brought 7,000 plus youngsters into the city, and with them came family and supporters. They were teams from the city and district. There was teams from wider afield. There was international teams from America and Europe, And it was just an amazing sight to see. I was so lucky to be able to get to some of the games. I was lucky to get to the Brandywell on Saturday for some of the finals, and the atmosphere throughout the week was tremendous. And families just made really good memories. It was great if you won, but if you didn't win, you just made absolutely fantastic memories. And I've been talking to some of the local football teams who were involved, and all of them are absolutely buzzing, to use a dairy phrase, around the whole week and a half, or the week, and how they got on. So I want to congratulate the organisers of the Foyle Cup, and I want to thank the council officers who would have been involved, and particularly our grounds maintenance people who would have been really involved in ensuring that pitches were ready and up to standard for that. And then that brings me on to the Foyle Maritime Festival, and what a tremendous week we had here along the quay for that. The atmosphere was amazing. The numbers of people that we seen along the quay who had come from far and wide, and also a lot of local people that I bumped into that I haven't seen in probably 2 years because of the pandemic and all that came with it. But as a city and district, we were so ready to embrace it. And we certainly showcased our city and district in a fantastic light. I know from talking to crews that were coming off the boats, they just couldn't believe the atmosphere and the welcome that they had from this council area. So I want to congratulate you and everyone who made that possible, and I really want to put on record my congratulations to the Derry and Strabane public who came out and embraced it, and put on record absolutely our thanks to council officers who went over and above to ensure that it ran smoothly. Unfortunately, we'll move on to the flooding next, but up until that point, we had an absolutely tremendous week. So congratulations to everybody in the hard work that was put in relation to that. I see Morris in the chat box. So Alderman Devaney, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and wholly support your comments on the week that we had or more. And look, hugely successful Milk Cup and the festival, the Maritime Festival, excellent work. And I just want to put on the record from the DEP, thanks to the council officers and staff that delivered this, and as you say, worked tirelessly and times went beyond the call of duty on it. But I have to say, well done to everyone.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just to join with yourself to congratulate the organisers of the Foyle Cup. I was at the parade last Tuesday, and to see so many young people in our city and district back out and enjoying the parade and looking forward to the competition that they were taking part on, particularly after the Foyle Cup not being on due to the pandemic, was something very, very nice to see. The organisers of the Foyle Cup always go above and beyond, but I think they stretched that limit even this year, and it was great to see the Foyle Cup back out in the city and district, and I hope and sincerely hope that it grows even more so in the years to come. And a huge thanks to all of our staff who were involved, from grounds maintenance right through to assist and support the Foyle Cup. Also, a huge well done to everyone who was involved with the Foyle Maritime Festival. I think it was a fantastic celebration that we've seen along the quay. The numbers, I believe, will break any records that we've had in maritime festivals of years gone by. Once again, with a pandemic, you get to appreciate just how lucky we are to have these fantastic festivals within our city and district. And I think the smiles on the faces of people who were walking up and down the quay last weekend show just how lucky we are to have committed council officers there to ensure that these events run smoothly and that they're well planned and well delivered. I spoke to a number of council officers at the event, and you could see how hard they were working, how tired they were, but how committed they were to delivering a first-class festival. And let's hope that we can do all we can to see the Clipper return. I heard you on the radio, Mayor, and they were asking big questions about whether it would be coming back again. I think the the commitment from this council needs to be there, and we need to see how and what we need to do to ensure that the Clipper Festival stays a key part of our summers going forward. But a huge well done on behalf of the SDLP to everyone involved, because this year, above all years, I believe was a huge success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to have the Alliance Party's comments associated with yourself, I think the past week, the Foyle Cup, we have seen such an amazing buzz. It's brilliant to have so many young people and enjoying the sports, but also to see the wide variety of pitches that were used across the city and district, so that there was always an accessible match for you to get to. I know there was one out in my own area, which was fantastic to see. And our congratulations and huge thanks to all the staff of the Maritime Festival. Everybody's been talking about it. It was absolutely amazing, especially with the fireworks on the last night. I mean, they've gone well over and above what anybody had ever expected, and I'm sure they are tired and hopefully getting a bit of rest. But you can see, Mayor, from some other cities trying to bid, that they're trying to replicate what we have, and I think it's something that we do have to keep here within the city and district, because it does provide a great buzz, but also great benefit to our local restaurants and hotels and stuff. So it's a huge thanks to everybody involved in such an amazing week.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. And Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mayor. And on behalf of Sinn Féin, I think first and foremost, we would like to extend our gratitude to everybody that was involved in the organisation and delivery of the Foyle Cup. I think it goes without saying that the Foyle Cup has become a staple in the calendar of our city and district, particularly for anybody that's interested in sports. And as a parent of somebody who was involved in the Foyle Cup for many years, I know the excitement that it creates within the household, and you've seen that demonstrated by the thousands of young people that lined their streets, that attended that attended matches, and took part in what turned out to be a fantastic competition. And as others have said, this year, the Foyle Cup committee almost outdone themselves. They've stretched themselves, and it became bigger than it ever was before. And hopefully, as Councillor Tierney had alluded to, hopefully that this could be a point where the competition could continue to grow. But one of the key points, or the key positives that we've seen out of this year's Foyle Cup, is the huge increase in female participants within the Foyle Cup, and there was quite a few of the ladies teams that from within our own district that done very well throughout the Foyle Cup, and I have no doubt that will have a snowball effect. It will have a massive impact in terms of encouraging young girls to take part in the sport. Mayor, in relation to the Maritime Festival, like others, we just want to congratulate everybody that played a role in terms of the organisation and delivery of what turned out to be a fantastic event. Our council and council officers have become renowned for delivering festivals and events on the international scale, and the Foyle Maritime Festival didn't disappoint. It was fantastic to see so many people turning out to what essentially was a carnival atmosphere along the quay, and it was the level of detail in terms of the preparation for the festival was second to none. So a huge congratulations to everybody who was involved in the organisation and delivery of the Maritime Festival, and a special thanks to yourself, Mayor, for representing our council. Not only all those visitors that are coming to the city, all those that all the different crews that took part in the Clipper race itself, but also
Thank you for that, Councillor Jackson. Councillor or Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mayor, and just to congratulate the organisers of the Foil Cup, another outstanding tournament this year. It was a great sight to see them coming down Great James's Street, all those thousands of people, and you know, kids they just love it. They had a few relations too that were in it as well, and they really enjoyed themselves. But listen, you know, all those teams, especially the local teams, they're great ambassadors for our city. You know, they really done them proud, and the district as well. And as Councillor Jackson says, you know, there's a great buzz about the town when it's on, and it was great to see so many ladies teams involved this year with it. But a massive thanks also to council officers and our events team for the Maritime Festival, another successful year. It's great to see, you know, like obviously there's all our towns and cities are looking to basically stage this event. And they're envious of whenever this city puts on a great event in the way it does. We're nearly, I have to say, our events teams are you could be classed as professionals now is putting on these here, but it's testament the the events organisation whenever the crews and families that have come back, you know, year after year, and basically they enjoy actually coming to our city. You know, it's a special stop off point for them, and they really look forward because they know that they get a warm welcome here too. So well done to everybody involved, right from officers, event team, right down to the individuals and the staff that worked on a daily basis at it. It was great to see. Well done all, and well done, Mayor, as well.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor. And just to echo what other people have said, you know, and have people before profit associated with the praises on the Foil Cup and the Foil Maritime Festival. And I think, you know, with the Foil Cup in particular, like we've seen the incredible, like it's an incredible international like football tournament at this stage, with teams coming from all over to compete. And I think the thing that makes it really special is the volunteer effort. Like the organisers, you know, organised a fantastic tournament. But if you think about the volunteer effort from the organisers, from families, from volunteer coaches, you know, from people getting teams organised, fed, the kits ready, like it's just an incredible community effort that makes all of that possible. So, you know, there's so many people working behind the scenes, you know, to enable those to participate and play football. And I think, you know, it was really, really special. And like, you know, every year, you know, the Foil Cup has enabled like women football teams to play, you know, from even like I think even over the last 20 years, that's been the case. And I think that's an ongoing legacy that the Foil Cup have really embraced, and it's been excellent. And I think it was great to see this year they also had a disability tournament as well, so really enabling, you know, people of all abilities to participate in the Foil Cup, which I thought was very, very significant, and really, really deserves credit. And with the Foil Maritime Festival as well, you know, it was excellent. You know, we're, you know, Derry City Strabane District Council are known for how good we are at putting on festivals, but I think the significance of the Foil Maritime Festival in terms of giving a positive light to our river, which often is associated with negativity, particularly like around suicide. And I think, you know, to see life on the river with the boats, with again accessible sailing, accessible activities on the river for people of all ages and all abilities, I thought was very significant. And, you know, I think, you know, this was like 2 weeks of the year where we've seen great life and a great buzz on the river, and we need to figure out a way that we can have that the whole year round, because when you feel that that life on the river, it gives a different sense of how things are here. And if we can figure out a way to elongate that, I think it would be very good. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Neil, and yeah, I think that's probably the burning question and a lot of people's lips, and how do we keep it going all year round? So the ball's along the key, because the key is and if you go to any European city, it is the life and soul of the city is along the quay. So we do need to look at that. I'm going to move on now to the next item that I have for chairperson's business, and it's a change of pace and it's a change of tone, probably, in terms of it's in relation to the flooding that we sadly seen then on Saturday night, which was devastating for so many families and individuals who's had their homes, their businesses flooded again. I know that I was able to get out around quite a few areas on Sunday and then into Strabane on, I believe it was Tuesday, and it was absolutely heartbreaking to see the devastation in some of those families and people. I know that some of these families have been affected some 3 times, and that to me is just devastating for them. I'm going to bring in council officers who are going to provide us with an update. I see that people are already in the chat box in relation to it, but I just want to say that I do have 3 people that have contacted me specifically in relation to this issue, so I will be going to them first. Councillor Tierney, you are one of those people, but I will then refer to the chat box. So if I pass over to the Chief Executive to begin with, and we can maybe get an update. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for bringing me in. Members, we thought it might be useful just to give you the briefest of updates. Obviously, it's been a really awful number of days for so many residents and businesses across the city and district. Since early evening on Saturday evening, the council team has been incredibly busy right across the board, working to do what we can to assist. We had given a full briefing to members on Monday through the adverse working group, so we don't intend repeating all of that, but simply to give a quick update on progress since. I was going to start with Denise, just to give a very broad overview, Denise, of progress. Bring in Seamus then, just to give us the stats in terms of the number of properties that have sought inspections, the number we've carried out to date, and just give us an update on that. Philip, particularly on the engagement with DFI in relation to the short-term proposals for remediation in Ballycolman, which was the subject of quite a bit of media discussion yesterday. And then very briefly, if there's anything further to add by both Connor and Adele. So members, will be quick, but just asking Denise to lead off, please.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon, members. Members, following the adverse weather group meeting on Monday, where John says we obviously provided very detailed response to what we did over the weekend, there's still been a number of actions that we have taken forward this week. So I've had numerous regional meetings. I think the regional group members have been meeting daily this week. We've also had a number of meetings with the affected communities, with the community reps. We've spoken to the community reps right across the city and district. We have a further meeting members planned with there's regional meetings planned for tomorrow, and there's regional meetings, or there's community meetings planned for tomorrow as well. But members, just to give you a bit of assurance, all the queries that you have raised with me over the past week and at the weekend, I have a specific meeting tomorrow with DFI, Rivers and Roads and Northern Ireland Water to pass on all those. So I have collated all those, members, all the queries that you have raised with me. I've collated all those, passed them on to DFI over this past 2 days. So they're to come back to me with responses to those tomorrow. So all those specific issues, members, I will pick that up with DFI, Rivers, Roads and Northern Ireland Water tomorrow. We're doing a lot of work with the community reps and with the regional community resilience group in terms of the provision of sandbag containers in the different areas. We have also moved to restock all of council sandbag containers, so hopefully they will be restocked by tomorrow. DFI, Rivers, they were having difficulty restocking the sandbags, so we have taken that up regionally. We've got funding from the regional group to restock that, so we have went and done that privately ourselves, members, with private companies, so that'll hopefully be done in the next day or two. So I suppose the work's ongoing and it will continue to progress over the next week. I'm working with the communities, and again, members, if any of you have any specific queries that you want me to raise through DFI or Northern Ireland Water, please don't hesitate to contact me and I'll pick that up. And also I'll keep you appraised in terms of the meetings that are happening and the action that's being taken by the relevant agencies. So thanks for that, John. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Denise. Seamus, could you please update us on the inspections, the number of officers carrying them out and the properties to date? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John, and through you, Mayor. To date, we have received just over 450 requests to inspect domestic properties impacted by the floodwater, and we continue to receive requests, albeit at a lower scale this last day or so. So to date, we have inspected and visited over 95% of those properties, and approximately 100 applications have been approved to date. And we aim to have the majority of approvals processed by close of play tomorrow, bearing in mind that we continue to receive requests for inspection. So there may be a few early next week as well that will be processed. So currently the Environmental Health team have 12 officers carrying out inspections. They began on Sunday just after lunchtime. And that's the quick update. We'll arrange checks to be made available from tomorrow onwards.
Thank you, Seamus. Philip, if you could just give us an update on the situation with Ballycoleman and the engagement with DFI. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John, and through you, Mayor. Members, you'll recall that there was a paper ratified by the Council at the end of May in relation to the potential for a short-term solution which DFI Roads were looking to put in place in relation to the flooding issues at the Ballycoleman estate. Following the ratification of that paper, officers of the Council have been working proactively with their colleagues in the DFI to allow that solution to be put in place. I personally met with DFI Roads officials on the 1st of July to set out the issues that need to be addressed to allow the necessary legal agreements to be put in place between the parties. And those steps have been progressing as quickly as possible, with officers from both sections taking forward the various actions that were formulated at that meeting simultaneously. This work was continuing in advance of the flood and has continued subsequently as well. Members, the legal agreements will need to be ratified by the Council in due course. They'll be brought to you as soon as possible. Just to stress, members, that in relation to some of the conversations that have taken place in and around this, that there is and has been no dispute between the Council and DFI in relation to this matter. All engagement has, in my experience, been positive and progressed with a view to expediting the solution as quickly as possible, and that will continue to be the case.
Thanks, Philip. Connor and/or Karen Phillips, just any updates on the recovery operations in terms of support to residents and staff from a waste perspective?
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Mayor. John, our crews are still out working with homes impacted. As in all cases where there's insurance companies involved, there'll be a delay in getting the assessors out to give the go-ahead for families to dispose of contents. Now, we have most of those details and contact details have been left with those families, so we're in a position to have the items removed. We have teams to do that. So we're still providing containers, we're still doing bulky lifts, and that will roll on. I'm aware that there are a few access problems in some of the more rural areas where roads have been damaged. And again, we'll work with those residents in either identifying collection points or, until such times as the roads are repaired, we stand with them and ready to remove those items as and when required. But again, any of the issues that have been brought to me have been dealt with and actioned over the past couple of days. And if there are any further queries, I'm happy to deal with them directly. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Connor. And finally, Adele, I know you've been keeping over all the columns with regard to it, and if you just want to update members on anything that's developed since Monday.
Thanks, members. To be honest, I suppose more towards the beginning of the week, we were really proactive in terms. It was very important for us to get the message out to especially those families who were affected, to get them to register with the council for the emergency payment. Now, we think we were really successful on that because of the level of engagement that we got, and obviously the response that Seamus's team have received in terms of getting the numbers of people registered. We've been continuing to do that. And then I suppose now as we go forward, we're dealing with regular queries and updates from the media, and we're working very closely with the partners in DFI and DFC about getting as much information and messaging out going forward and how we kind of plan for the future. And also just in terms of any services that are affected that Conor is saying, we'll be working proactively to sort of communicate that as well. And that's all from my end.
Okay, thanks Adele. Thanks everyone. Back to you, Mayor, for members' questions or comments.
Thank you, Chief Executive, and thank you to all the council officers there. And I just want to put on record again my thanks to all of you and all of your teams, particularly in environmental health, particularly in waste management, that I know from talking to people on the ground the work that you have done has been really welcomed. The way the council sprung into action on Saturday evening, I witnessed it myself as I was along the quay. I have to pay tribute to our council and how we went about this, but I also would like to pay a mention to local communities that actually really pulled together on some of this stuff, with local farmers with their tractors and equipment pumping out rivers and pumping out drains. It was a tremendous effort, and I know that effort actually went on to save a lot of homes. So I want to put on record my thanks in relation to that as well. I do, as I said, I have a number of people who are in the chat box, but I also had a number of people that contacted me either on Sunday or Monday in relation to this asking for a special council meeting. Unfortunately, under standing orders, the soonest we could have pulled that together would have been today anyway. So we pulled together the adverse working group on Monday instead. But to give people the opportunity, I'm going to bring those people in first. So that begins with Councillor Mckee Boyle.
Thank you, Mayor, for your indulgence, and apologies I could not attend on Monday to the adverse weather working group, but I did speak to you on Sunday about this matter. So I suppose just I want to put on record also my thanks to everybody right across the city and the district or council team that turned out to help and support everybody and their time of need due to the flooding, and particularly in my own area of Strabane. I want to commend the Three Rivers Rescue and the Search and Rescue Strabane, the fire service, particularly the neighbours that came out to help the people in the Ballycoman, community activists and elected representatives. But I want to pay a particular mention to our council environmental waste team, our bin men, who really showed up and worked on Sunday to help those, and they went above and beyond. So thanks to Conor and Gary Rankin for that, and also to Denise for her contribution on Sunday, keeping everybody informed. And indeed, I had to contact her in support of getting a social worker for an elderly lady. So thank you, Denise, and also to Seamus. And thanks to Philip for his response to my query in terms of where we are around the legal technicalities now of getting the work on the ground that needs to happen for the people in the Ballycoman to alleviate any further flooding. And I do appreciate the fact that this is now a priority within the department and within council. The minister did cut short his leave to attend the flood hotspots across Derry and Strabane. He gave a commitment in Strabane to come back in a month's time to the people in the Ballycoman estate. He listened and he is now actioning what needs to be done. We do now need to support the sign-off on any agreed works going forward to make that a reality for the people in the Ballycoman. And just listening to, I suppose, on the evening and the aftermath and the days that followed, listening to the people who, some people for the fourth and fifth time experiencing the flooding into their homes, horrendous morally, and what it does to their mental health and well-being. It doesn't just affect the family that live in the house, it affects the whole family and indeed the whole neighbourhood. And just to mention also the businesses, you know, across the district, particularly in Strabane, that have been affected also, particularly in a time where businesses isn't great and now they've had to deal with flooding in their businesses. A lot of homes and businesses damaged, but there's also a lot of people's gardens and outhouses and garages with a very expensive equipment and tools in those garages that have been lost as also. But just to make the comment, and it was mentioned at the meeting with John O'Dowd in the Ballycoman the other day, I raised it with the Minister in terms of our fire services and the important role that they play during floods, particularly in hotspots. The current protocol for the emergency services firefighters is they call out whenever the water is in people's homes. So Mayor, with your indulgence, I did speak to the Minister and he said he would speak to the Health Minister, Robin Swan, around revising the protocol to allow the fire service to respond immediately to flooding emergencies to prevent homes being flooded. So I've a proposal in the chat box, Mayor, if you'll allow me, just a letter to go to the Health Minister, Robin Swan, in terms of the role of the emergency services and our firefighters that play a critical role in flooding hotspots, that this council write to the Health Minister, Robin Swan, to ask the Minister to revise a protocol so that the fire service can respond immediately to flooding emergencies to prevent flooding into the people's homes. Obviously, the current protocol is, you know, the water has to be in the home before they can come out, but it's critical and they play an important role. That if they were called immediately and the protocol was revised, that they could prevent further flooding. So, Mayor, I hope everybody would support that, and thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for yourself, Mayor, taking the time to come to Strabane and other areas to meet with the people that were badly affected by the floods. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle, and I see that the proposal has been seconded in the chat box, and it's just a letter to go to the Health Minister. I'm happy to accept that proposal. If I don't hear anyone speaking against it, I will assume that as a council we're in support of getting that letter sent. Yep, don't hear anybody speaking against it, so I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Now, the second person that contacted me at the weekend was actually Councillor McKinney, but unfortunately he hasn't been able to attend today's meeting, so he's asked that Councillor Ferguson speak on his behalf. So, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for allowing me in. I know Councillor McKinney was very passionate on Sunday when he was out with the families in Ivy Mead and myself whenever I was out with the families in Eglinton and other affected areas. Mayor, I want to first and foremost thank council officers for their response and for the continuing updates, and even to Denise with the sandbags and the possibility of different areas, because I know it was an issue on the night where priority areas were having to share with areas that we weren't necessarily flooded before, but people were scared, understandably, for their homes. I also want to extend my thanks to the local communities and, like you say, the farmers, as well as the fire service, the PSNI, and the Foyle Search and Rescue, and all our council workers who were out on the ground trying to save homes. And Mayor, it's just absolutely devastating. Like you say, this is multiple times that these houses have been flooded, that these families are having to up out of their homes now and find somewhere to stay whilst they have it dried out and go through whether they have insurance or not. Thanks to Seamus's team for the response to some of the houses, for all the houses, and we can see the numbers growing quite a bit where families are affected, and £1,000 isn't a lot, but it's something to help for the first couple of days, you know, when you're clearing out and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with yourself. I think the way the community come together, the way that our council work together, you know, we did try our best, but I think we need to go forward now with actions and find ways in which that we can remediate this so it doesn't happen again. We need to look at things like the flood prevention scheme, not only for private residents, but also for our housing executive houses. And then, Mayor, I've been contacted just this morning from a business affected with 9 units, 9 properties, and that's another. If I know immediate ones that I've met is 13 businesses that are now looking at a huge bill to pay with someone not being able to access insurance. So it has to be a huge priority for our council to push back and say that, you know, there has to be a mechanism in which these businesses can reach support. Otherwise, a lot of them will go under. And yes, it's not their home, but it's usually their livelihood and how they are able to maintain their home. So, Mayor, look, I want to, again, thanks to yourselves for allowing me to come in, and thanks to everybody that was on the ground and some number of the councillors that I have met whilst out on the ground with them, and just send my support and my absolute heartbreak to all the families and businesses that are being affected. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing me in. And before I get into the wider issue around the flooding, I want to thank you as well for taking my phone call on Sunday morning. I know we've already touched on the fact that you've had a busy week. So sacrificing your Sunday, they listen to myself and other councillors is something which I and our group certainly appreciate. I want to also send our heartfelt thanks to our council staff and the contractor for their quick reaction to the flooding on Saturday night, not only around the distribution of sandbags and all of that, but the quick reaction to make sure that people were kept safe around the Foyle Maritime Festival as well, and all the effort that went on around that. There's no doubt that the reaction of council was second to none, in my opinion, and I spoke to Denise on a number of occasions on Saturday night, as did a few other of our members, and her support and her advice was greatly appreciated. I think it's also important that we acknowledge the support that communities have given to communities, where neighbours have rallied round. Former neighbours in particular estates have left their own homes to come up and support their friends and their wider community in such tragic circumstances. But to see that community effort happen right across this district was truly humbling. Denise has touched on it, and she has said that she's going to raise it at various meetings. But Mayor, we have to look at the access to sandbags, not only from council, but from the department as well, because it was an issue on Saturday evening. There's no doubt about that. As I said at the adverse weather working group on Monday, we need to have access to sandbags, in my opinion, in every DEA. For example, in my own DEA, I'm not aware of anywhere where there is sandbags held in stock. And I've spoken to community representatives across the Ballyarnagh DA, and I know that that's an issue. Whilst we do have access to salt bags and stuff, I think it would be very a quick fix, for want of a better word, to load up those areas with sandbags as well. And Mayor, there was an issue that was raised at the Adverse Weather Working Group, and I've seen that the DFI Minister and DFI have tried to rebut this, but there was an issue on Saturday night around a forklift truck being hindering the distribution of sandbags at the DFI depot at Lisnagelvin. I was there along with Councillor Mooney and Councillor Riley, and I know other councillors were there as well. And the forklift truck, whilst it didn't stop the distribution of sandbags that particular night, it definitely held it up and slowed the whole process down. So I think whenever we are raising this with DFI, DFI need to understand that yes, whilst there was access, it was definitely a hindrance having that forklift truck there with no key to access it. I think it's key now going forward. And you know, during my time as mayor, I was in the Ballycolman whenever it flooded twice within a number of weeks, and it was the same homes. The homes that I visited in Danesfort Crescent were the same homes. The homes that my colleagues, Councillor Mooney and Councillor Riley, visited in Ivy Mead and in other parts of the waterside, colleagues visited homes in Eglinton. It's always the same homes, Mayor. And I think it's unfair if we do nothing, or if we just expect the department to pick up this role without any oversight body. I think it's key that we get sign off around the remedial works at the Ballycoleman, and we allow that to progress as quickly as possible. But this is a huge issue, Mayor, for people right across our district. I don't know of any DEA that didn't have homes or businesses impacted by the flooding at the weekend. I think we need to still have, whilst we're having the opportunity here to speak about it, and I and the SDLP certainly appreciate that, I think we also need to have a special council meeting where we do call on the relevant partners, and we do get an opportunity to put questions to them, and we do get an opportunity for them also to lay out their plans around remedial works and mitigation measures that they tend to put in place, both in the interim and in the long-term solutions for these areas, because our constituents deserve an opportunity for their local elected representatives to be putting those questions to the key partners in this. And I think that's something we should do, Mayor, and I do have a short proposal, which I hope you'll allow me to put. I also think that in relation to going forward, I think in some of the homes that I visited, it was 4 and 5 times since 2017 that they've been impacted by flooding. And I know some homes obviously aren't as bad as others, but once water gets into your house, it literally runs right throughout the length of it. And it's something I think that we should not, as a council, be taking our eye off. And I know that listening to council officers in their update on Monday and their update today, that they don't intend to take their eye off it. I would like to see this flooding issue become a standalone issue, an agenda item on the Environment and Regeneration Committee, until we as a council are satisfied that the remedial works and the mitigation measures have been put in place, and that we're satisfied that our constituents and the communities that are suffering from these flooding incidents are satisfied that the department have sat up and listened. I think it was Councillor Gallagher that said on Monday that council sometimes often get the blame for these things, and local councillors do as well. Whilst we may not hold the entire responsibility for the remedial works, we do have a responsibility to make sure that they're carried out. And I think having this as a standalone item where reports can be brought in, where departments have the space to come in to committee if needs be, to discuss what measures they're planning to put in place, will go some way to show the people who are impacted and the communities that are impacted by this that we are not going to allow this to be forgotten about until the next flood happens. So, Mayor, I'm going to pop that proposal under the chat box here, and I hope you'll allow me to take it. Just again, Mayor, before I close, on behalf of the SDLP, to send our support and our to all of the residents across this district who've been impacted by flooding over the weekend, and to send our huge thanks to the community volunteers and the council officers and contractors who stepped up at the weekend and made sure that we could do all that we could to try and help and support people, from our environmental health team right through to our chief executive. I think council's response was second to none, and I think council continuing with these ongoing meetings to ensure that the remedial works are carried out, and to ensure that the £1,000 are dropped into people's bank accounts as quickly as possible, will show that this council are taking this serious and are adamant that we're going to try and do something about it. And I think my proposal, which is now on the screen, also strengthens and supports that wider position from council officers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney, and I am happy to take that proposal, and I see that it is seconded by Councillor Boyle. I will give it a second to see if there's anybody that wishes to speak in opposition, or else I will just take it as agreed. Okay, going to take that as agreed. Councillor Tierney, thank you. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Mayor. And like the previous speakers, I want to begin by thanking all those who worked tirelessly on Saturday and Sunday and who continue to do so. I just want to thank them on behalf of our party for their work in that. I did attend the meeting that council held, I think it was Monday, and I brought up something regarding the Met Office notification and the litness of that. And I believe that notification that comes out from the Met Office is a catalyst for other organisations to spring into action their emergency plans. I know Councillor Dan Kelly elaborated a wee bit further. So I would think maybe I think I did ask John maybe to write to the Met Office to just get clarification on what happened on Saturday, and just to confirm if indeed that they are the main, I suppose, catalysts in order to get the emergency responses up and running. I would also, I think too that while I along with Councillor Emma McGinley was out with representatives from the Bogside and Brandywell Neighbourhood Management Team, delivering sandbags from the lockup that we have here in the Triax area on Sunday, because there was a renewed fear that there would be more flooding. If we had have had prior warning, that could have been done on Saturday, and it might have helped some homes from being flooded. I just want to say, look, I got a call from a radio station, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they acknowledged that they had left out the Moor area, where there was a lot of flooding in home, and not in, well, there was flooding in homes in Little Diamond, and there was flooding in the Bluebell, commonly known as Mealy's Bar, too as well. But these flooding incidents happen in these areas, especially the Foyle Road area and all the streets coming off that Lecky Road, and indeed Little Diamond. Homes have flooded in the past, and that would only be with heavy rain, not the extraordinary rainfall that we had and seen on Saturday. Now, myself and Padraig Delargy have met with DFI Rivers and all, and they need to be taking this matter seriously. And while I appreciate that, roads and pathways being flooded, the actual fear of water going into people's homes can be just as great, especially when their homes have been flooded before. And as I said, it happens very, very often. I would say 3 or 4 times a year. This is the gateway to the city centre. There's many people living within those homes who need help from services that have to attend to help look after them daily, and their access is greatly impeded by these floods. So, a solution needs to be found, not just to all what's happening in Ballycombe and the Eglinton, etc. While I'm not taking away from that, the issues in the Moor DAA also need to be addressed, as they are happening very, very regularly, and it is in the interest of everyone that these matters are addressed. There has to be some solution out there that can help address these matters. So that's all I like to say on that there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logue, absolutely. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor. And yeah, I just want to echo the other comments. And give my solidarity to everybody who has been impacted by these devastating floods, and it's absolutely heartbreaking that this has happened again. And I want to commend as well everybody who was involved in the emergency response efforts and also the cleanup efforts, including our own council, farmers, local residents, and others. Whenever the minister came down this week, the caretaker DFI minister, I just kind of wasn't sure why he or how he could have been defending DFI in all this, because they have serious questions to answer. Feels like he's completely out of touch, because DFI completely let people down in their role in the emergency response, but also and the length of time it's taken for flood defence measures to be put in place. Obviously the longer and more infrastructural bigger measures are going to take time, but there needs to be the intermediary measures put in place that are, that are going to ensure that this won't happen again. Because I think, people are in disbelief that this has happened again. Again and again, we've been calling for gullies and drains to be cleaned. And it's just, it hasn't happened in the regular way that it needs to. We like it looks like the last 5 years since the floods in 2017, there was all talk of lessons and plans from then, but it looks like nothing has been done. I think people have really lost confidence in what can be done around this. We have a climate emergency. We're going to have more extreme weather like this, but like the urgent action that government has promised on the climate emergency, we're really not seeing it. And people are furious, and we do need to hear that. And I think, as well as looking at the emergency response, the measures to prevent flooding, we also need to look and scrutinise planning decisions that are allowing homes to be built on floodplains. Because I know that there are homes which, before we were really, properly thinking about climate change, that were built in floodplains, and we need to do a lot about those in terms of green infrastructure and flood remediation. But we're still looking at passing planning applications for houses on floodplains, and that just cannot happen. And there was a recent one where, if it wasn't for residents who were active in opposing housing development on a floodplain out in Eglinton, then we, like, just last year we could have been making another decision for that to happen. So like, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I agree with Councillor Tierney in that we have a responsibility as council, even if we can't actually put the measures in place ourselves, to really keep on to DFI to ensure that this work is done. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And just on behalf of the DUP, I want to just say thank you to all the officers and workers, right down to the street cleaners and those who helped in the cleanup and those who helped to get sandbags out. I suppose, first of all, Mayor, the issue on around sandbags has been well documented at the adverse weather meeting and has been well documented here. And I have to say, Council were very, very swift in their action once they got word that there were issues. They were on the ground very, very quickly with their sandbags. And I have to say, and around DFI, there was a complete failure there to react to the emergency. I mean, look, when you first of all listen, the depot, even the waterside and other place, wasn't even open till after 10 o'clock. And when they did get access, and I know DFI officials have said there was access to sandbags. I think anyone who sees the photograph of the forklift in front of the sandbags shows that the access to the sandbags was hampered. And what that done, Mayor, was it made it difficult getting the sandbags to there and a quicker response. If they'd been easier got at, or the forklift been somebody there to drive the forklift, they could have been set onto vans or lorries and got to where they were needed for those people who were severely in need. And around the businesses, once again, we're back at the same issue again. We discussed this in 2017 and around business support, and unfortunately there is none there for the businesses who have been affected. And as some of the previous speakers have really said, some of these are small businesses and they need support, or they will be going out of business. And look, many of us who are public representatives were across the council area in early hours or late hours of Saturday night and early hours of Sunday morning, and clearly they seen the despair and pain of those residents once again reliving the nightmare of 2017 with their homes being flooded and around all those issues, bringing back those bad memories. And we talk about mental health. I saw people crying, and I can understand why they were crying. And they mentioned to me, this has happened again and again and again. And I do say, Mayor, we have to get officers in round the table, and I do support the previous proposals that went forward there, but we have to get them in there to see how we move this situation forward for that flood alleviation work, or flood prevention work, or whatever you want to call it. We need to get that in action, and I know we've been talking about it since 2017. And look, the people on the ground were clearly stating to me, and I'm sure everyone got it, you know, it's actions we need, it's not lip service. So I would be very clear and pushing for that. But once again, Mayor, I just want to say, as I did comment on the council, I would like to congratulate those community groups who went above and beyond their duty. I would like to thank the Blue Light Service, and especially and I do believe that proposal about the fire service is a good one, because I know in areas only for the fire service being there pumping water out, the situation would have been worse in areas. And for those farmers who came out, just asked, and they were there with their tankers pumping and pumping until 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning until the worst was past, I have to commend them. And everyone, you see the neighbourly support that people got from one another. We talk about bringing communities together. This brought communities together, neighbours together, friends together, because one thing in our council area, when neighbours are in difficulty and in severe difficulty like this, they pull out in numbers and help, and that was very, very evident on the ground. But I have to say once again, DFI failed miserably in their response, so they did. But thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. And I just want to say I have 4 more speakers in relation to this item, and then I will close it down, because there's still 3 more items for chairperson's business, and we will have the special meeting of council around this. So I'll move on to the next speaker, Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mayor. And do you know what? I will keep it short, because I know what you're saying there. So I'm not going to rehearse what's already been said here, but I do support Councillor Kinnery's motion, as well as Councillor Caleb Boyle's motion as well. Look, speaking with a few residents, especially from Ivy Mead area, who have went through this now on a number of occasions, and a few of them met with the minister the other day when he was down. There was no inkling from the minister. I know he's only acting at the minute, like, you know what I mean, until if we ever see Stormont up and running again. But basically, they're saying that, or the minister was saying that he was talking about 9 million. Now, I don't think it was that much that was mentioned back in 2017, but obviously costs go up and so on. But I think, you know, DFI, Rivers Agency, NI Water, they've all been really slow to sort out these problems, the flood defences and so on. They've been promised all this stuff. To be honest, we all went to the, you know, the meetings in the YMCA and Eglinton, and to be honest, I don't think I didn't have much faith in the flood defences that they were putting up there, knowing that the way things flooded. Listen, I spoke to residents who've been through this. They've actually a lot of good ideas. A lot of ideas would be a lot cheaper on the public purse. So I think they should be listened to. You know, and I agree that we should get a meeting with all the statutory agencies and so on. But the residents of Ivy Mead have asked me, can they get a meeting with these statutory agencies as well? And I know sometimes it starts off and it turns into a shouting match and so on. But listening to them speaking, they have a lot of good ideas, and I think they should be given a chance. So I don't know whether maybe I could even add it to Brian's proposal there, if he doesn't mind an amendment on it, just to say that at the end of the second paragraph, that and promises they basically hold a public meeting with people who have suffered flooding in the Ivy Mead and obviously the Eglinton areas to discuss what can be done to alleviate the problem. Because it's 5 years now and they haven't had no help at all.
Darn, unfortunately, the motion or the proposal by Councillor Tierney has been passed. So,
All right, that's sorry, that's okay.
so an amendment can't
So-
be made to it, but
sorry.
you can't. No, you can't. You can make
Can
a
I
separate
propose-
proposal.
Can I? Yes, that's okay, Mayor. Sorry about that. There, I'll if I can put on a separate proposal, that would be great. Can I just put it on there now? I'll just, yeah. And look, I'd just like to thank the council officers and the whole team. You know, they done a great job on Saturday night. They stepped up the mark, as did the fire service was great as well, and everyone else. All the communities brilliant. DFI have a lot to answer for. They were shocking, and I think that needs addressed. But thank you, Mayor. And I'll just put the proposal up there. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Gay, and I see that Councillor Ferguson has seconded that, and I don't see an issue with taking that as a proposal either. Nobody wishes to speak against it. We'll take that as a proposal is passed as well, and I'll move on to Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting us in. And again, thank the officers for the update on this. And again, and yourself, thank you for coming to visit Strabane. It was much appreciated. I have a number of things that I would like to mention. One is like some of the parties on here maybe casting some dispersions on some of the workers of DFI. Look, there was a lot of workers that were on the ground on Saturday and Sunday, and they were doing their best to help people, stop them from flooding. And I think that if we want to talk about blame, we had a discussion here a number of years ago about emergency staff on standby and the lack of wages or lack of payment that they would get for being on standby at weekends. So I think that is a discussion that should be had by council and as an emergency meeting as well. Mayor, I would also like to have some discussion around, you know, the emergency payment scheme, and just to put it on there and through officers, because we got an update there and the possibility of possible checks being issued tomorrow. And just what gives me some concern, Mayor, is there's a lot of interpretation around eligibility around the scheme. The scheme is around, it's not a compensation scheme, that particularly around people who suffered severe damage, whatever, but it's about severe inconvenience regarding flooding. And I think that's important to say that a lot of people have been affected, and maybe not by severe financial damage, but you know, they may have stuff around having to bring in dehumidifiers and a high cost of electricity to clear water out of their houses. They've had their heating systems cut off, and some of that replaced that's outside. There's the detergents and smells. People have lost mats and towels and everything to get down. But there's also like a real high emotional stress around people who have had sewage water come into their house and having to repeatedly remove it from their house. And like that in itself has to be considered as a severe inconvenience. If you're getting sewage water in your home, regardless of the cost of damage, but if it's in your home and you've got smells and you've got the whole thing of being repeatedly flooded, because I just have a fear that come tomorrow that some will get issued checks and some might not, and it turns people against people who got and people who didn't, and people are saying, I've had flood water, sewage water in my house, but I've been turned down because of interpretation of eligibility. So, Mayor, I'm just requesting that maybe that all members get some sort of outlay of the council's eligibility interpretation of people's entitlement to this emergency payment, because I think it's important. I mentioned earlier on about council getting flack and blame and all the rest, that if people who have been genuinely flooded sewage water in their home, and then council sends them a letter saying you don't fit the criteria, then I think council is going to get a lot more flack. So I think we should be very clear around severe inconvenience and what that means. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Doyle and then Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mayor. And a lot of what I wanted to say has been said. But I mean, I do have to say that I think the response from the top down in DFI leaves a lot to be desired. I read some of the comments from the minister in the paper over the last couple of days, and wondered where he had been before he came down the road, because how you could praise his department, even though he's only a caretaker minister, and I give that to him, when these problems have been happening for years, is something that, well, I could make plenty of comment about. I'm sure many of us could. But one of the things, and I was going to put forward a proposal, but I think it'll be covered in the special meeting, is that I've had residents who weren't affected by the flooding over the last while, but who were able to send me photos, for example, of gullies in their street that hadn't been cleared in years, despite requests, that had no doubt, they had no doubt, and neither did I, that it contributed to flooding in other areas. Areas, for example, where water was running down areas of Bishop Street, where gullies hadn't been cleared in a long time, was contributing to flooding on the Foy Road. And I've seen a number of instances of that. So I mean, ain't you very clear? We want to see an assessment of all the gullies, culverts, and drains right across the city, because there's no doubt that there are some that are blocked that are contributing to water and surface water lying in areas which we know constantly flood. I had a very strange situation on Saturday night of being called by a business at the top of Waterloo Street, where you would think they would have no trouble given the gradient on both sides, down Fawn Street and down Waterloo Street itself. But the water had found a way and was coming up actually up through the second floor toilet in the business that had just actually invested a large amount in its operations. So there's obviously issues right throughout the city and district where water is lying on the surface because it can't get anywhere else, but also where it's being diverted from other places where culverts and the like have not been cleaned for years. And it's very clear that has happened this time as well as others. So that's one of the things that I certainly intend to raise. And I think it was Councillor O'Neill had mentioned as well about the aspect of climate change. These things aren't going away. She's absolutely right when she says that we need to have we need to take a wider view in looking at this, because ultimately in a city that's effectively a valley, of course it's going to affect us in the longer term, and we can't be in a situation where it's happening at all for a start. But when we're able to predict that we're going to have harsher weather as a result of climate change, then it's all our responsibility to ensure that we can put in place measures that will allow that to go forward. But absolutely, to echo what other members said, particularly around the actions and the work that Denise and Seamus had put on over the weekend. I had spoke to Denise a couple of times, and I mean that's over and above all of the work that our staff do regularly. They were absolutely fantastic, and even in the communications, Mayor, I think that there's something that sometimes we're a wee bit too nice about the work that others need to do. I mean, I know for definite, I got loads of contacts from people saying, why didn't council do A, B, C, and D? And I think it was either John or Philip that mentioned that the adverse working group, we don't have a role, a statutory role, and sometimes we need to say that because there were plenty of staff of ours out on the ground, But obviously the Liston Galvin depot issue is one that is of DFI's making. And sometimes we do need to tell people, look, we're doing everything we can, but the lead agency on this has dropped the ball, and that's certainly what happened. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. And finally, Councillor Jackson on this issue.
Gormagat Mayor, and I know Councillor Boyle and Councillor Logue have passed on our thanks to all agencies that took part in the flood response in behalf of our party. But I just wanted to come on the back of some of the comments that was made, and particularly the comments from Councillor Doyle previously. I completely concur that there's parts of the city that are historically prone to flooding, city and district, and that's and there does need to be a dedicated scheme to address or for a flood alleviation scheme or a flood prevention scheme. Those need to be implemented. But no, just on Saturday night, I received many calls, a lot of calls from Ivy Mead. I received calls from Eglinton, Prahane. But for the first time in my memory, there was properties flooded on top of hill. At the very top of the valley that Councillor Doyle described. So there's there is major issues, but one of the things that I just want to separate this into two. There needs to be some preparatory work in relation to protecting areas that are prone to flooding, and then the emergency response. I want to look at that slightly separately. The emergency response. There was certainly a fall down in terms of some of the statutory agencies, but the community resilience team certainly stepped up. But it shouldn't be left to community resilience teams to protect properties. There is an onus on the statutory response, the statutory departments. They put schemes in place, they develop schemes, they protect properties. Sadly, that didn't happen. And that's when Councillor O'Neill made reference to the minister attending our city and district to defend DFI. That's not my understanding of the ministerial visit. The ministerial visit, and I would concur with your remarks that the response from the department over many years has been nothing short of disgraceful. It has let people down, and it wouldn't be the position of the minister to defend the inaction of the department. But in relation to the ministerial visit, and that's where my understanding comes on it was the minister, as Councillor Boyle outlined, it cut short a holiday to come and hear firsthand from the experts around how the flooding events were impacting people within this district, and to hear firsthand from those very experts who are living with this day in and day out around the potential solutions that the department could take forward. And I would look at that positively, that we now have a minister, albeit in a caretaker capacity, that's willing to listen, that's proactive in terms of coming down, engaging with those that are impacted by floods, to hear firsthand, to hear from them around what the solutions could be. In terms of our role as a council, we should be doing everything we can to keep this on the agenda, to continually highlight and ask for an update on flood alleviation schemes or flood prevention schemes. But I would be encouraged that we now have a minister that's listening, that understands the impact the flooding has in this district. So there's quite a lot of work they do going forward, and it has been a long time coming. But I would look at this positively in terms of the response, the ministerial visit, that there is a determination there to listen and understand the impact of flooding within our district. So, but that shouldn't mean that department can completely be let off the hook. We need to continually raise the issue, and hopefully we can start to see those issues being addressed once and for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, and you were the final speaker in relation to this issue, and there are a number of proposals that have been agreed by Council today and a number of actions that we will take forward. So I thank everybody for their indulgence around that. In terms of other items for Chairperson's presence, as I said, there remains 3 items that we need to discuss. So I will bring in Alderman Hussey on the issue that you wish to raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Members will know that the UK will be hosting the 2023 Eurovision Song Contest. This is unfortunately due to the circumstances that exist in Ukraine, and I think we all understand that. But I would feel that this might present an opportunity for our events team to again exhibit the expertise that they have exhibited over so many different events around our city. And that's already been lauded with a particular regard to the Maritime Festival. I'd like to propose that our events team investigate the feasibility of submitting an application to host the 2023 Eurovision final. I realise that there will be many logistical and resource, including finance issues around this, but I think we should investigate the feasibility. And as to putting in a bid, I'm not proposing that a bid be put in, but that we investigate it and a report be brought back. I'm also aware that there could be time constraints on this, and that indeed the Chief Executive would have executive powers over the break period, so that is something that could expedite a bid if it was found that it was something that is time bound. But I think, given the historic connection that this city would have with Eurovision, for example, via Dana, that we should be considering this. There are many will be skeptical about the musical nature of the contest, but one cannot take away from the spectacle that it is and the media attention that it brings, and thereby bringing attention, further attention to the city and district over time. So I propose, as I've said, that the events team investigate the feasibility of submitting a bid for the 2023 Eurovision final. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey, and I see it's been seconded by Councillor Doyle, so it is just to investigate the feasibility around it. I'm happy to accept that. Is there anyone? Councillor Tierney, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Alderman Hussey for that proposal. I look forward to it when I see it on the screen, hopefully. Now, are we saying, as Alderman Hussey saying that the Chief Executive, if there is a time constraint, that the Chief Executive can go ahead and put on this bid? We would certainly like to see how much this is going to cost, first and foremost, before we agree to do anything. And we'd like to see the potential pros and cons, I suppose, of putting on a bid for the Eurovision Song Contest. I'm not totally against it, but I'm equally not totally for it at the moment until we have more information. So if we are to put on a bid, or we are to investigate putting on a bid, I would appreciate if a report could be brought to the next relevant committee. I would assume it would be Business and Culture. The next relevant committee on what putting on a bid means for the city and district and what it means for ratepayers within the city and district before we agree just on a whim, if you want, they put on a bid for the Eurovision Song Contest. So before we could support that, we would want some understanding from Alderman Hussey of what it is he's actually suggesting we do. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. And Alderman Hussey, if you could just put that in the chat box and I'll call in Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor. And I fully support the ambition that Derek has put forward to us there. Because you know what? Apart from being a fanatic with regards to Eurovision, which I am, don't know whether that's a good thing or not. There are so many people who have contacted me over the last number of months around this issue of Belfast being mooted as the city of music. And I've mentioned it here before. And I think sometimes the reason why they get the hop on us on some of these things is because we're not ambitious enough at times with regards to the things that we try and do. The things that we do are fantastic, but there's nothing wrong with trying something new. And I would well say there's no doubt in my mind that in a basement office somewhere in Belfast, someone is already doing this for Belfast City Council. And there's no reason why we shouldn't go ahead and do that. So I'm fully behind the proposal. I think we need to put our spoke in whenever the opportunity arises, and to show people in the north where exactly the city of music actually is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mayor. And we have no issue with the proposals in front of us, but we do have some issue with the content that Alderman Hussey said when he spoke to them the proposal, because whilst we've no issue investigating the feasibility of hosting a Eurovision final, we certainly have issue around any commitment without knowing the costs, and that's we've had long discussions over many weeks to try and find some accommodation that they help pay council workers a fair wage increase. We've continually assessing council finances around getting value for money for our ratepayer, and they ensure that our ratepayers are protected against any unnecessary rate raises, as particularly in the midst of a cost of living crisis. They give our chief executive, with all due respect, delegated authority. They put a bid on during the summer recess without those financial implications being discussed by us as a council is something that we would be very reluctant to support, because given it all that we've just said, that's not something that I feel is that we could place on the shoulders of our chief executive. That's a decision for us as elected members. So we've no issue with the proposal, but we would have very serious concerns of any expectation that our chief executive will have delegated authority to put that bid in on our behalf during the summer recess. So if as the proposal stands, we're prepared to support it, but look forward to hearing the response from Alderman Hussey. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And from our party, we have no problem in supporting the proposal going forward here. And look, there is no, we're sending this out for a feasibility study to see how much it would cost. And I believe Alderman Hussey will come in and say nothing will be agreed until the costings come in and we have a look at it. and then we decide then, and we never know, there might be funding or help out there to help with the bid. I think that's maybe what we're discussing, that feasibility study, how much it would cost, and maybe look at, is there any funding streams out there that may be able to facilitate. And I take on board what a previous speaker has said, we always cry about what Belfast gets, but we down here in the Northwest, we have to put our best forward and put in bids or see if we can get the feasibility, if we can get the costings and see then clearly how we move it forward. So as I look at the proposal, it's only looking at a feasibility study. It's not about talking about putting in a bid yet. It's looking at around the costings and the mechanism. And let's be honest, that's going to take the month of August to get that sorted out anyway. So we'll be back out of recess in September again. But Mayor, we're happy to support the proposal.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney, and I'm just going to invite Alderman Hussey if he wishes to respond, or if not, we have the proposal that is on the screen and we can take that to a vote because it is proposed and seconded. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to come back. I certainly agree with the concerns that have been expressed by the SDLP and by Sinn Féin on this. But I'm also concerned at a matter of timing. I don't know what the timescale is for a submission of a bid. And I'm sure that the Chief Executive himself would not take it on unless in a dire emergency. But at the same time, as Councillor Doyle has said, I am aware that a bid will come in from Belfast. I know that a motion has already gone to that particular council. I'm aware, for example, the City of Leeds will be seeking to host the particular event. So there is this timing factor. I would trust that we would have, over the period of elected members' recess, that we wouldn't be faced with a situation where, the bid has to go in now. But, and I agree with Councillor Devaney, over that period of August, officers can investigate the feasibility of it. I did contact one of the events team and suggested this. The response was, why not? Well, so my response is, why should we not be seeking to host this particular final? I appreciate the concerns, but if you look at the motion, I'm not giving permission for anyone to have delegated authority, but we will be aware that over the recess period, the Chief Executive, I'm sure in this meeting later on, will be requesting executive authority. I don't think that the Chief Executive would use it in this particular circumstance, but that is the only factor that I mentioned that for. If there were a case of a time scale that had to be adhered to, I would imagine the Chief Executive would make contact with all members of council before any such decision would be made. But the first thing is it feasible for us to submit a bid? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey, and I think that's a bit clear. I think the proposal is in front of us in terms of the feasibility, is supported by the majority of members. I think there seems to be a consensus that nobody would be happy for a delegated authority decision to be made on it. But by the timescales in terms of getting the feasibility carried out, we would probably be out of recess anyway. So I'm going to put it out there now. It's proposed and seconded. Would anyone like to speak against it? Nope. Okay. Thank you. That proposal has been passed. So thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to come on this. As members will know, this Sunday marks the 50th anniversary of the Claudia bombing. On the 31st of July 1972, the IRA exploded 3 car bombs in the village of Claudia, 2 in the main street and 1 on Church Street. The no-warning attack killed 9 civilians, injured 30, including my party colleague and friend of many in this chamber, Mary Hamilton. James McClellan, 65, David Miller, 60, had assisted the injured in the first bomb, but like others had been directed by the RUC towards the Beaufort Hotel, were unknown to everyone. Another car bomb had been left, which would kill and maim others who thought they had all reached safety. Elizabeth McElhenney, 59, was serving petrol to a customer. Rose McLaughlin, 52, murdered. She left behind 5 children. Joseph McCluskey, 39, a father of 7, was walking to the shop for a newspaper with his 4-year-old son. He was murdered. The 4-year-old son miraculously survived. Arthur Hone, 38, a keen musician and an insurance salesman, was married with 2 kids. William Temple, 16, murdered while delivering milk around the village, and he was only covering for a co-worker that day who hadn't shown up. Patrick Connolly, 15, murdered by child killers as he walked the street he had walked so many times. And young Catherine Aiken, 9, just an innocent child, murdered by evil cards as she cleaned the shop windows. Her mum seen the bomber leave the car bomb beside the shop. He gave no warning to young Catherine as he walked away. Members, I met with the families of the Claudia bombings last year, along with members of SEF, members of the different denominations of churches in Claudia, and members of the public, members of the village out there in Claudia as well. And I asked them what did they want to do to commemorate this 50th anniversary, and they just wanted to do the same thing. They just wanted to remember and reflect and just basically get it over and done with, because the families of the murdered, the families of the murdered innocent victims, they didn't seem to seek the limelight. They just seek justice for their loved ones. They received no inquest, no apology from the perpetrators. Members, I did not bring this as a motion because it did not need to be debated, and I feel at this time it is better to reflect on that awful day. And I would like to propose that during this council meeting, we hold a 2-minute silence in memory of those innocent victims of the Claudia bombings. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Guy, and I am happy to do that. And I see a number of people have come in to second that proposal. So I am happy to take that proposal and to start the 2-minute silence now. Thank you, members, for that. Moving on to the final piece of chairperson's business. And I would like to invite Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try and keep this very short. Mayor, we know how important mental health is and how much of a important topic it is for many of our councillors, and especially within our children and young people. I met with Joe Thompson, who's currently working alongside a CERT, doing a programme which is for around about, well, at least 40,000 children in Northern Ireland are affected by living with parental substance or alcohol dependency, as well as poor mental health. Joe is trying to do a 2-year program, which is a 5-step program called Steps to Cope. It's something that's been fully funded, and he's hoping to reach out to as many statutory agencies as well as councillors, as well as anybody in the community, to highlight the programme and how you can access it, because it is a self-referral, or it can be referred by one of ourselves or through the statutory agencies. It's something that can be done online, and I think it's something that he would love to highlight to many people as possible. So, Mayor, just if I could propose that we invite Joe to our next civic forum so that he has that ability to reach out to statutory agencies as well as councillors. I'll pop it in the chat box, Mayor, but just thank you very much for allowing me to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I don't even think that needs to go in the chat box. That, well, it's there, but no, that's fine, and I'd be happy to take that as a proposal. I see it's seconded there as well, by Councillor Doyle first. So happy to take that. I'll give it a second in case anybody wants to. Nope. Okay, Rachel, thank you for bringing that information forward, and I'll look forward to that coming to the Civic Forum. So thank you for that. And I know I said Rachel was the final item of chairperson's business, but I'm afraid the Chief Executive has asked that there is another item. So I will pass to him. So thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. It's probably more appropriate if I wasn't to introduce this item. I'll ask Ellen maybe to come in on it, if that's okay.
And through you, Mayor, and members have actually highlighted this issue during the course of the meeting. It would be normal practice for us to formally delegate authority to the Chief Executive during the summer recess or his nominee in order to address any issues of an emergency nature or a concerning nature that would arise. And obviously during those that period, the Chief Executive would liaise with the Mayor and/or appropriate Chair of Committee in order to sort of take forward any decisions that need to be made. So therefore, in terms of today's meeting, I would request and recommend to members that we formally delegate that authority to the Chief Executive over the recess period. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ellen, for that. And I see that it is proposed by Alderman Hussey and seconded by Councillor Doyle. So that's passed as well. Folks, it's been a very long chairperson's business. I do appreciate the patience, but it was in relation to the flooding, and I think that most people felt that they had something that they needed to say in an open business and in an open meeting. So I'm glad that I was able to facilitate that at this point. So on that, we are now approaching 6 o'clock. So I will ask for a 15-minute break. So if we return perhaps at 6:15, and we can then get into the business of the meeting. So thank you, and I'll see you back at 6:15. Okay, members, you're all very welcome back to the meeting following our break. I'm just going to move on now to agenda item 6, which is the confirmation of the open minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 30th of June. Could I get a proposer and seconder for accuracy, please?
So proposed, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second, Rachel.
Sorry, Rachel, I had just seen there that Councillor Doyle had come into the chat box. So for matters arising, I have Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've it up there in the chat box, C297/22, which was a motion that I had brought to the last full council, and if you can remember, it was regarding it was following the BBC whistleblowers episode, and there was sexist and racist and pornographic messages, etc., and all sorts of allegations from current PSNI members. Since that, Chair, there has been a number of there's been a number of issues which have come to the fore, and a number of them are very, very serious. And I do believe that a lot of the comments, a lot of the issues that I had brought up during that meeting, including the fact that Amnesty International had 3 damning reports this year alone, was ignored by this council, and that I don't believe that the reports, that the comments made by most members were accurately reflecting the feeling on the ground. And even Mike Nesbitt has said that he has grave concerns about transparency in the flow of information, and that's regarding 130 PSNI officers being currently investigated for gross misconduct. And he said himself that it was difficult to get straight answers. Now, Chair, since that meeting, I have discovered that a significant youth group in the town has withdrawn their cooperation with the PSNI. This is a Youth Work Alliance, and there has been a breakdown. There has been a breakdown in trust, and that they felt, Chair, that they were being used in their connections with the PSNI, and they believe that, having spoken to a number of youth workers, that there's a direct impact within this city. They felt that they weren't respected and that they were effectively used as pawns. And there have been a number of incidents that they had formed this opinion, but some of them emanate from a parade in town on Easter Monday, and they believe that they were totally undermined and that they were exposed, and potentially they were concerned that some of their members could have been put at risk. Now, I had a conversation with some councillors after that meeting, and I was surprised to find out that they knew all about this, but none of that sentiments was expressed during the debate. Now, since that, Chair, we've had the revelations that a man who had taken his own life, and at the scene, his family were told to leave the room, and whilst they left the room, Chair, the man was moved, the deceased was moved around the room, and he was photographed, and including his genitals were exposed, and this was put on social media, and references was made to TAG, which, as anyone would know, is a derogatory term. And the family, Chair, said that they had felt physically sick regarding this. What goes into the mind of people who would do this, I don't understand. Now, some of the people involved were suspended in full pay, and one of them even had a second job. It now transpires, Chair, that this was not an isolated incident, and that last night on the news, a similar incident was reported. We've also had the granting of a public interest immunity certificate, which was requested by the PSNI in the case of Noah Donoghue, and that can only thwart or obstruct any investigation into the circumstances of this child's disappearance and death. There's dozens of other incidents and concerns regarding human rights and civil liberties, and I believe, Chair, that there's a growing resentment within the community at a lot of levels, and that the elected reps in this council continue to bury their heads in the sand. And even for those, Chair, who believe that this force can be reformed, these incidents and others should be a major cause of concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Gallagher on the same issue?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting us in. And again, like Councillor Donnelly, I would concur with all that they said. And I think there was no further away than this morning. We heard Sinead McLaughlin, MLA for Derry, saying there's a complete erosion of confidence. And I'm wondering myself, is that just words for the radio, or is there any actions in that? And Mayor, I come from Strabane, and if you would beg with me, I'd like to make a proposal. I'll put it in the chat box. And Mayor, as Councillor Donnelly mentioned, Noah Donoghue and his mother was from this district. He actually lived in this district. And we've seen the issuing of PII, and we well know in this district what the issuing of those certificates actually mean. We know our failure when one was issued in the past to a well-known figure called Robert Howard, and we know that there was truth and transparency covered up in that particular case, and unfortunately he went on to kill other people. So Mayor, I'm asking this council to support this proposal to go forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Can you give me 2 seconds just to speak to the lead solicitor here? Councillor Gallagher, just in taking some advice here from our legal perspective, the issue that has been raised is a really significant, important issue, and I fully concur with that and concur with the sentiments that have already been expressed. But it doesn't arise directly from the minutes of the meeting, and it could lead to significant debate. And I would ask that perhaps that this is submitted as a proper full motion, and that we give people time and consideration of the proposal or motion, and we debate it at the next available council meeting. So yeah, go ahead, Councillor Gallagher, but that is the position that I'm taking.
Well, Mayor, I would just like to point out there is a number of motions that were passed today. They're of the same vein, that didn't come from minutes.
They came from chairperson's business, Councillor Gallagher. So it wasn't directly the same. You're comparing apples and oranges. What we had at the start of this meeting was chairperson's business. No, look, Councillor Gallagher, let me finish. We had chairperson's business where we covered a number of issues, and coming from those issues, they all directly related to the issue that we were talking about, which was flooding. which was why I was happy to accept them. This is a significant issue, and I would ask that it be brought as a proper motion. Thank you.
Mayor, if I come back on that, Mayor, to see the hosting the Eurovision Song Contest, none of us got advance warning of that, of where that came from, of what responsibility that it put onto this council. None of us. And that also could lead to significant debate, but you allowed it and it went to the floor. This is to write a letter to the British Secretary of State to cancel a PPI that he's issued that is of the utmost importance immediately, not next week, not immediately, to cancel it.
Councillor Gallagher, I appreciate what you're saying, but if it was so important, you could have brought it as a notice of motion. This isn't new information. It could have been brought as a notice of motion. Alderman Hussey actually contacted me to request to raise it as chairperson's business in terms of the Eurovision issue, which is the protocol in which I had set out prior to the first council meeting. So that is the ruling, and that is the position that we're taking as a council. I would ask that this issue be brought back as a proper notice of motion to allow people the space to properly debate it. And that's the position that I'm taking at this time. And I feel that it is a fair position at this time. So Councillor Gallagher, I am speaking. I would ask that you bring this back as a proper notice of motion to allow members the courtesy of debating it properly. It is an important issue, and I would ask that.
As a point of order, can we hear the legal opinion, and the legal opinion that differs, that disadvantages people on this meeting now, on this motion, versus the disadvantage that we were presented earlier on with hosting Eurovision Song Contest?
Councillor Gallagher, I will bring in the city solicitor, but then I'm going to move on this issue.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There is a specific provision within standing orders in relation to matters being raised under chairperson's business, which requires 24 hours notice to be given to the mayor before those matters can be raised. Separate to that, Mayor, there are separate provisions in relation to the bringing forward of notices of motion outside of chairperson's business, which requires appropriate notification to be given. I think it's under standing order 16 off the top of my head in relation to it. Obviously, this motion doesn't fall into any of those categories. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask, is there any other items now for matters arising?
Sorry, Mayor, I was just under Councillor Gallagher, but it was in reference to what Councillor Donnelly had brought up, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I was part of the conversation that Gary refers to, that we had briefly after our council meeting one day, I think it was last week. And look, I want to take the opportunity to be very clear about what was said about the PCSP, because there's been some messing out there around Aintrew's position on this. The PCSP is primarily there, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as anybody who reads the legislation that inspired it, it's very clear that it's there as a body that is supposed to hold the PSNI to account. When it comes to issues around funding, whether it comes to issues around jobs, so for example, the community safety wardens, I've absolutely no issue in supporting those. What I would say is there's no reason why we can't do those within council, because the PCSP does not hold the PSNI to account. How have I come to this view? Because the number of times that I've requested to speak to senior officers about issues that have happened in this city that have been turned down or redirected to lower ranking officers is not befitting of an organisation that wants to be held to account. Indeed, it's got to the point where my party leader, Patrick Bean TD, has had to request the presence of the PSNI Chief Constable at the implementation of the Good Friday Agreement Committee in the Dáil to get answers around some of the serious problems that we have with the PSNI. And if I understand how parties feel that they must support the PSNI and must support the accountancy, their so-called accountability arrangements, because they fought very hard to get them. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that when there are, and there will be again, serious issues that relate to policing that happen in this city and district, the response from parties in particular, and some MLAs is not, oh, well, it needs to go brought forward to the PCSP. They actually go down and meet the senior officers in the Strand Road. So if one worked, why do the other? And ultimately, I want to see a police service that is here to do a very specific job, and that is to tackle crime. At the moment, I don't have confidence that the PSNI are doing only that job, and sometimes they're not even doing that job. I have very serious concerns around the issue that Councillor Gallagher brought up. The sentiment of his motion, we totally agree with as a party, and it's got to the stage where we in this council have sat down and sought to hold the police to account, and they pulled out the day before. And every single one of us, every single party and independent at that time said that was not on. And yet here we are still on the same rail where we have to bring it back to the PCSP because that's the mechanism for holding the police to account. It either is or it isn't. Now, in terms of, I have to refer back to something that Alderman Devaney mentioned to me at the last meeting, which he's perfectly entitled to do. He said, Emmett, have you gone and spoken to the police? Let me answer him. Yes, I have. I've tried to raise issues in this city and district with senior police officers and been told to go and speak to lower ranking police officers, whilst I see other parties traipsing into the Strand Road on a regular basis to speak to senior officers. If that's the attitude of the PSNI when parties genuinely want to hold them to account, then that speaks for itself. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Jackson on the same issue?
Yes, Mayor, but I'm not too sure if Councillor Tierney's in front of me.
Oh, sorry. I obviously missed him. So go ahead, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to Christopher there for getting me on. Mayor, I was also part of the conversation that Councillor Donnelly referred to after a council meeting. And Councillor Donnelly referred also to the fact that those issues around that particular youth organisation weren't raised last month whenever he brought his notice of motion. I have been working with and talking to that particular youth organisation from that incident happened on Easter Monday. And the reason that the SDLP didn't raise them is probably due to the fact that that particular youth organisation don't have an issue with the PCSP, and Councillor Donnelly's motion referred directly to the PCSP. If it had referred to the PSNI, then we might have raised it there. We most likely would have. But maybe Councillor Donnelly would need to go back and read his own motion because it was specifically around the PCSP. We do, like Councillor Donnelly and Councillor Gallagher, have some concerns around some of the actions of the PSNI. And Councillor Gallagher's right. Sinead McLaughlin has been very vocal over recent times around the behaviour of the PSNI, particularly the two incidents which Councillor Donnelly referenced. But her job on behalf of the SDLP is to hold the PSNI to account at the policing board. And she will continue to do that. I would like the city solicitor or perhaps the chief executive to put something to bed for me because I was shocked last month whenever I seen Councillor Donnelly's motion on the agenda. It's my understanding, Mayor, that we have a statutory responsibility to have and fund a PCSP. Therefore, I don't know whether or not that motion should have been allowed on the floor. And I think if that was cleared up today, then we would be able to move on. And those people who are on the PCSP, those parties and or independents who want to take a job at holding the PSNI to account can get on with doing that work on behalf of the people that we represent. Now, in relation to the PCSP, my understanding from its inception and the policing board has always been that their job is to hold the PSNI to account. I have full confidence in the SDLP members who are on the Derry and Strabane PCSP that that's what they do on a monthly basis. But I am absolutely shocked that two people elected to this council who would claim to be Republicans would complain and give off at every single opportunity that they get to do away with the body that is there to hold the PSNI to account. Mayor, we were happy with, and we're only, if you had have allowed it, we would have been happy to support Councillor Donnelly's or Councillor Gallagher's motion, which was on the screen there a few minutes ago, because we're more than happy, and we support the Donoghue family and getting to the truth and what happened to young Noah. And I do look forward to debating that motion whenever it comes back, if it comes back, because we think it's important that the information that the PSNI may or may not have in relation to Noah Donoghue's death is made public and is made available to his family and to their legal representatives. Obviously, you have taken the decision, which we fully respect, not to allow that onto the floor today, and we will look forward to debating that whenever it comes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mayor. And I suppose from our party's perspective, we opposed the motion that was coming forward last month, and issues around it were well rehearsed around the value that we place on the work of the PCSP, and also the important role that the PCSP play they hold in the police to account. And I think one of the issues, and it has been well rehearsed around the issues of the PCSP is the fact that the meetings aren't public. But if Councillor Donnelly was to check the minutes of the PCSP, he would see that the police operation in Easter Monday has been raised. It has been, and subsequent to that, the relationship breakdown between the PSNI and our youth service has been continuously raised. I know I've only recently been appointed onto the PCSP, but that's something that I personally challenged the PCSP on, or the PSNI on, around the breakdown of trust, and I suppose the position that the PSNI, that particular PSNI operation placed, the position that they placed on our youth service, and a lot of the points and the disgraceful actions that Councillor Donnelly alluded to, and then subsequent to that, the actions taken by the British Secretary of State in relation to Noah Donoghue are the very reasons why there needs to be those accountability mechanisms. There needs to be opportunities for elected members to challenge and hold the PSNI to account. It's absolutely disgraceful that one of the first actions of the new British Secretary of State is they issue a public interest immunity certificate. It certainly isn't in the public interest to conceal information around the death of a 14-year-old child. And that's something that Policing Board member, MLA Jerry Kelly will raise at the Policing Board, and has done in the past in support of the Donoghue family. The motion last month was to remove those accountability mechanisms, and for the life of me, I can't get my head around why Councillor Donnelly would like that to take place. In terms of the outcome of that, it would place the most vulnerable in our society at risk of harm, because of the removal of some of the protections that the PSNI and the support mechanisms that's available through the PCSP. So that's in terms of our party position, we stand over the decision, and again, like Councillor Tierney, it's very disappointing that that motion was allowed to be tabled at last month's meeting, but they'd be removing any accountability mechanisms whilst the actions of PSNI officers fall far short of what we should be expecting of anybody in a public service position, is ludicrous at the minute. I think, if anything, those actions demonstrate the need for greater accountability, greater transparency in those bodies. But certainly any calls to remove them whilst those sort of activities are going on is, to be honest, it's hard to justify. So I think that's me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Barr?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to put on record my disappointment at Councillor Giller's proposal being sidelined. This is an issue of massive public interest and an issue of serious consequence for a family from our district. The manner in which the proposal was dealt with is synonymous with the way the Donoghue family have been treated by the authorities from day one, and I really would have expected more from this council in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barr, but I would like to say it hasn't been sidelined. It is a significant issue, which I would more than happy debate if it is brought in a notice of motion. So I sincerely hope that it is brought back to the next council meeting. So Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And can I just put on record the DEP does totally condemn what PSNI officers and the recent events that we have listened to on the media across our televisions. We totally condemn it, but we are very, very confident that our DEP representatives on the policing board will be raising these issues and will be asking questions. And I will declare an interest in the PCSP, Mayor. Look, I sit on that, the PCSP. And I have to say, I have listened here to other speakers talking about raising issues, and I do agree with the previous speaker, one of the previous speakers, who really did, Councillor Jackson, did raise at the last PCSP meeting. I was there, and around youth services and contact with the PSNI. And I have to say, Mayor, anytime I phone senior police officer, look, we have some of us have their direct mobile number, and I have no problem. I have no problem getting through to police officers. And look, if a senior officer isn't able to facilitate me, it is somebody below that person. And look, that to me that is natural. It's not that I'm going to condemn. I don't want to be talking to the commander all the time. If he's on other business or other duty, if it can be handed down the line of command, that doesn't bother me. But look, I have to say, in defence of the PSNI, any time that I have rang them in around issues, yes, sometimes they may be busy, but they will definitely come back to you fairly quickly. And if a meeting needs to be facilitated, it may not be that person, it could be somebody else, but that is part and parcel of the job. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. I have Councillor Harkin. I'm then going to allow Councillor Doylan to ask a question, and then I'll allow Councillor Donnelly the last word before I bring in the City Solicitor. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I thank Councillor Donnelly for raising the issue of continued police misconduct in relation to the images of people who died by suicide. I mean, it's disgusting, and I think we can all agree on that. But again, I don't think I mean, we're not surprised by this. And I suppose the issue here in relation to the PSNI, in terms of accountability, it seems like there is continued inaccountability, and that's the problem. They continue to be, whatever mechanisms is there, they're not working to hold the PSNI accountable. And I think that my mind hasn't been changed in that, despite all the attempts by councillors involved in that process here to tell us we're going to raise this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Nothing seems to be changing, and that's the frustration. And I think that that's what Councillor Donnelly is trying to reflect. And I think his motion was about attempting to make this point. I mean, I'm looking now at like the way the Tories are ramping up all this kind of an attempt to divide people against workers going on strike and talking about making strikes illegal by nurses and healthcare workers. And even over the last couple of years, I've raised here in the chamber about the PSNI turning up immediately when dockers went on strike and harassing people at the picket line there. So, you know, where's the accountability there? And what are they going to do now when workers start taking more action? There's a serious concern there. And it's not only that, there's just example after example of the police, in my opinion, being on the wrong side of social justice. And that's what the issue is. They are never going to be on the side of social justice. They're going to be a barrier to that. And so that I think is what is part of this debate from our perspective. And then look, I do think that Councillor Gallagher's motion had merit, and I think because this is happening now, and because this chamber won't be able to meet until September, I would, you know, plead with the mayor to reconsider letting us have a discussion about this. I think that a majority of people will agree with it. As Councillor Jackson spoke there, I was reading the Belfast Telegraph article talking about Sinn Féin MLA Jerry Kelly's, basically arguing the same thing that Councillor Gallagher's doing. I think it would send a powerful message from our district before we go in recess to the Donoghue family and to the PSNI that we're not going to stand by passively and allow this kind of this attempt to deny the Donoghue family and others the access to all information around this. So we've ended up talking a lot about this now, and I would urge the mayor to reconsider and let us actually vote on this so we can actually this is something hopefully that can happen right across the north. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Doyle with a question, and then Councillor Donnelly to finish up.
Appreciate you letting me back in, Mayor, and it's just in relation to the question that is going to be put to the lead legal officer. My understanding, and I would like him to clarify it if he could, is that Article 18.1, Schedule 1 of the Justice Act 2011 sets out that the Joint Policing Committee actually defray any costs that council have with regards to a PCSP, and that any extra money that we add to that comes as a result of a decision made here. So in relation to what Councillor Tierney has said in terms of yes, we do have a legal obligation, as far as I'm aware, to have a PCSP, but in relation to the finance of that, that's defrayed by the Joint Policing Committee as outlined in the 2011 Act. So I'm wondering if you could clarify that for us just whenever he's coming back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll bring in Councillor Donnelly before the City Solicitor.
Chair, thank you. Look, there's a lot of talk here about accountability mechanisms, and as Councillor Tierney said, statutory responsibilities. There's moral responsibilities and all this. And all I've heard in this meeting that people have raised issues, and we've raised the issues, and this issue's been raised, but I haven't heard one iota, one piece of evidence that in any of the issues that I have asked or highlighted where they have been held to account. And if that evidence isn't there, if it isn't being said by the members in here, I assume that it's not there. And what we have is a talking shop, and an expensive one at that. See, regarding the PCSP, keep the PCSP, keep it, and people in here can attend it. Fill your boots. I have no issue. Go ahead. But if that makes you feel good, but I'll tell you what, the people of this city and district are paying for it. And you see the whole system right from the top, from the British Secretary of State or whoever's pulling his or her strings, right down to PCSPs. It's a fake system, and in between there's these fake accountability bodies. And you see nationalists who are represented on these boards. All these people are doing is providing cover and giving solace to the PSNI. That's all they're doing. They feel that they can act with impunity get away with it. See, regards the issue regarding Councillor Gallagher's proposal, I'm not sure when the British Secretary of State signed off on this. I believe it was very, very recently. It wouldn't have had time to be put in as a motion. And I think that, like all our sentiments expressed, the solace that the Donoghue family would take from this motion being passed here, it would help them, it would give them a boost. And look, I believe, Mayor, that you support this. If there's a way around this, I urge you, I plead with you to do it. If we have to try and suspend standing orders, but I do believe that coming out of this meeting today, if Councillor Gallagher's proposal was passed, it would send a very, very clear message. We're talking about the death of an innocent child here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. I'm going to bring in the City Solicitor again now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The question that was raised by Councillor Tierney and Councillor Jackson was in relation to the eligibility of the notice of motion which was proposed by Councillor Donnelly last month. To consider that, we need to look at Standing Order 16, which states that a motion shall relate to the responsibilities of the meeting for which it is tabled, and in any event shall relate to the performance of Council's statutory functions, powers and obligations, or an issue which specifically affects the Council's area or its residents, and in respect of which the Council is legally competent. I don't think that there is any issue being raised by anybody that the motion would fall within that criteria. I think perhaps the question that is being raised is in relation more to Standing Order 16.12, which states that a motion shall be rejected if the wording or nature of the motion is considered unlawful or improper. And I think the suggestion is perhaps that in this case, the motion would have been unlawful had it been passed. In that regard, members, it's necessary to look at the specific wording of the motion, and in particular the action that flowed from the notice of motion. Had it been passed, Councillor Donnelly's request was that the Council would look at ways of redirecting funding of ratepayers' money to directly redress human rights infringements and issues directly impacting our community, including the cost of living crisis, etc. So the request was that the Council would look at ways. Had the motion been passed, then officers would have had to go forward and consider whether or not that was something which was possible, whether there was mechanisms of doing it, and whether or not it would have been lawful so to do. It may well have been that, having looked at those matters, the report that came back into Council would have been simply that it was not possible, or that it would not have been lawful, but it certainly would neither have been unlawful nor improper for the Council to ask its officers to consider the position, and on that basis the notice of motion was accepted. Having accepted the notice of motion on that basis, and it having been considered on that basis, then I don't think really the issue which Councillor Doyle has raised arises to be considered in relation to this, and I'd rather not give a back of the fag packet answer to that question. If Councillor Doyle doesn't mind, it would be an issue obviously which would require consideration and would merit a more in-depth response than perhaps I would be in a position to give this evening. So I hope that assists members to understand the thought process that went into the acceptance of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip, for that information. And just to be clear, I wish that the proposal brought by Councillor Gallagher had have been submitted as a notice of motion, but falling outside of that, he had the opportunity to contact me to raise it under chairperson's business. That is the mechanism that we can do this outside of notice of motion. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The proposal that is sitting in front of us is not directly flowing from the minutes of the meeting. So under standing orders and under the advice that I have been given legally, this does not sit with the meeting. So whilst I might support the sentiments of it and would probably vote for it, the problem is I need to be fair as a chair, and that's the position that I'm in at the minute. So I'm going to move on now to other matters arising. No, I'm not bringing in anybody else. The decision is made. I'm moving on, Councillor Gallagher. Any other matters arising, please? Is there any other matters arising, please?
Mayor, I'll second his proposal to suspend standing orders.
I didn't hear a proposal being made to suspend
Councillor
standing
Donnelly made a
orders.
proposal to suspend standing orders.
I didn't hear a proposal being made to suspend standing orders.
Well, Mayor, can I propose we suspend standing orders?
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly.
And it's on the Pacific motion that I put forward. Thank you.
Okay, we do need to have a vote on the suspension of standing orders, and we do need to have a qualified majority. So I will pass to the Chief Executive, who will take us through the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman President?
Against?
Alderman Devaney?
Against?
Alderman Guy?
Against.
Alderman Hussey?
Against.
Alderman Carrigan?
Opportunity to talk about it.
Against.
Alderman McCready?
Against.
Alderman Thompson?
Against.
Alderman Wark? Councillor Raymond Barr?
For.
Councillor John Boyle?
For.
Councillor Michaela Boyle?
Or John?
Councillor Carr?
For John.
Councillor Cusick?
For.
Councillor Donnelly?
For.
Councillor Doyle?
For.
Councillor Duffy?
For.
Councillor Edwards?
For.
Councillor Farrell?
For.
Councillor Ferguson?
For.
Councillor Fleming?
For John.
Councillor Gallagher?
For.
Councillor Harkin?
For.
Councillor Jackson?
For.
Councillor Kelly?
For.
Councillor Logue?
For.
Councillor McGinley?
Or John.
Councillor McGowan?
For John.
Councillor Mooney?
For.
Councillor O'Neill?
For.
Councillor Riley?
For.
Councillor Sinead Barr?
For John.
Councillor Tierney?
For John.
Thank you, members. Now, I'm just gonna check my calculations here, but I had recorded 32 members were present, 80% of whom are 26. There were 23 members voting for and 7 members voting against. So I'm just going to double check that, but by my calculations, I'm not sure. We have not reached the QUMV, but just give me 1 second, please. Yeah. Just confirming, Mayor, that there may have been 1 member who voted for that I didn't hear, but that still wouldn't affect the outcome. That would have brought the total to 24 for and 7 against. The actual 80% of 32 is 25.6, which is 26 members. So we don't meet the threshold.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief Executive. Moving on, is there any other matters arising from the minutes of the full council meeting held a long time ago?
Mayor John Boyle here. I'm just doing a double check with you because I had to get a new replacement temporary iPad today. I'm just wondering if you can all hear me okay. I was wondering.
We got you, John.
That's
we
okay.
did.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you.
We did. Okay, any other matters arising, or will I move on to the confirmation of the open minutes of the special meeting held on Monday, the 23rd of May 22? Could I
So
get
proposed.
Thank
So
you.
proposed, Alderman Devaney.
Alderman Devaney, a seconder?
I'll second it, Breastland.
Thank you, Alderman Breslin. Any matters arising? No. Moving on to then the confirmation of the open minutes of the special meeting that was held the same day, directly after that meeting. So if I could get a proposer and seconder for accuracy.
So proposed, Alderman Devaney again.
Thank you.
Second again, Breastland.
Thank you. And any matters arising? Okay, moving on to the adoption of the open minutes of the committees. So starting with the monthly governance and strategic planning committee held on the 5th of July. If I could get a proposer and seconder for accuracy.
I propose that one.
I'll second, Sandra.
Thank you, Alderman Bresson and Councillor McGinley. Any matters arising from those minutes? Councillor Doyle, to begin with.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just in relation to the deputation we received from Blueberry Primary School. I've raised this with Karen today, and I know she's going to look into it, but I thought it would be relevant as well to put on notice for members that there's been a number of interested parties from Ukrainian refugees who are looking to place their child in the school. That would materially affect the numbers that we spoke about at the presentation. And it's just really to put on record that I think we should be doing all we can to support them through the operational group for Ukraine that we're a member of as a council, and try to assist in any way we can to ensure that those children who are in need of a school are able to avail of the places that are free in Blueberry, which is their and their parents' wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. That'll be noted. Councillor Harkin.
Thanks for letting us in, Mayor. Yeah, just in relation to the hardship crisis, I mean, the National Energy Action just posted a new report this week that said that nearly half the households across the north are in fuel poverty, which is alarming. And I know that there's a bit of ease for a lot of people during the summer because they can turn off their electricity or turn off their heat. But it is predicted that there's going to be yet another big spike in costs coming into the autumn and the winter. And I think that we obviously we're going on recess. So I think two things that I wanted to ask that for council to do is, and I'll just pop it in here. One is I think we should try to get clarification from the finance minister about how the £400 energy grant is going to be distributed here. I know that he was talking about that back in June, but we still don't have clarity on it. And I think that we should get clarity so people know when it's coming out and know how it's going to be done. And the second thing is, look, people will have seen in the agenda that all of the energy companies that we asked to have meetings with have turned us down, which is very disappointing that they're refusing to be held accountable. Given their role in terms of price spikes, and there should be a follow-on from that. But the utility regulator has now passed 17 out of 19 price raises over the last 5 years. So they haven't often said no. And I think that this is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And it's going to become a bigger issue now because we are told that there's going to be further price spikes going into the winter. So I think we need to get the utility regulator back in here to have a conversation with them about what they're going to do in relation to some of these proposed energy hikes, because we can't have the utility regulator just continuing to rubber stamp hikes. There is going to be a protest at the Department for Economy on the 6th of August, and it's about the discussion with the department and the minister and the utility regulator about action that they can take to try and rein in prices. And I think we have to be putting as much pressure on both the minister and on the utility regulator to start taking more decisive action. So I want to propose that we're not passing a motion to support or this or that. This is about trying to access more information and push a little bit of accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. And as it's directly relating to the hardship issue, I'm happy to take it, and it's been seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor. I've absolutely no issue in supporting the motion. I'm wondering if I could ask a question, Mayor, of the City Solicitor. It's a very quick one. Whenever we discussed previously whether we would have grounds in order to take the energy regulator to court, the City Solicitor very helpfully did a presentation for us, I think at the Hardship Working Group. It's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, that we were to get more detail on the issue of standing, because there was one slide on that, to see if we could do anything else. Could he maybe update us if that's correct or whether I'm wrong, and to see where we are with this, because I don't think that issue has been put to bed just yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll bring in the City Solicitor at the end of this item. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy to support the proposal on behalf of the SDLP. I was going to bring up this issue in responses to motions because at agenda item 18.2.1 there is a response from Simon Clark MP from the Treasury, and it specifically references the £400 cash grant that is available to households in Britain and isn't available here because we have no government, and we have no government because the DUP are refusing to go to work. And in that response from the Treasury, it says that the UK government will deliver equivalent support to people here in the north. So I think it would be useful if we could write to the Finance Minister and to the Treasury, because the Treasury have committed to do this, and it's in response to motion. So slight amendment, we should write the Finance Minister and HM Treasury, but happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Have you a seconder for that slight amendment? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Jack.
Sorry, thanks, Mayor. And we're we're happy to support the motion that's in front of us. And I know it's been well debated and continuously highlighted at this committee, and it's only right that we do continue to raise the challenges that everybody's going to be facing coming into the winter months, but particularly within our council district, where we've got a higher proportion of people on lower incomes that are really going to feel they're going to feel the burden of meeting those rising costs, coming particularly in relation to utility bills. My points that I wanted to make were almost exactly in relation to Councillor Farrell. It would be much more easier to get that support out to people if the DUP would end their boycott of the executive, but much more than that, because £400 energy discount isn't enough. It isn't enough support that people are going to need, and when you look at some of the projections around energy prices, there could be it's upwards of £3,000 increase on households. So the £400 energy discount grant per household is welcome, but it isn't enough. And the 430 odd million that's sitting in the executive that could be used to provide additional support to people at this time of crisis needs to be utilised, and that question needs to go directly to the DUP. But in relation to the minutes or the proposal and the amendment that's in front of us now, we're content to support both. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Alderman Hussey on the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. Like Councillor Farrell, I was drawn to the letter from Simon Clark, particularly the last paragraph on the first page of that letter. In the absence of a functioning executive in Northern Ireland, the UK government is taking decisive action to support the people of Northern Ireland through these payments on exactly the same terms as the rest of the United Kingdom. In the next response, Appendix 2, thank you for your correspondence on behalf of Mr. John Kelpie in the absence of the Office of First Minister and Deputy First Minister at this time. It will not be possible to provide a response. You may wish to resubmit your correspondence following the appointment of a First and Deputy First Minister. I'm not going into the rationale around why we don't have a First and Second or Deputy First Minister like others, but I'm going on to the rationale of why we don't have a functioning executive. The intransigence of Europe and indeed the Republic of Ireland is playing into that and needs to be addressed. As to those who are not going into the executive at the moment, but I agree with the amendment in that the letter from Simon Clark clearly says that our government at Westminster will expedite these payments if there is no functioning executive. The fact is there is not a functioning executive, therefore the responsibility falls back on them, and Simon Clark has accepted that responsibility. Therefore, I will be supporting the amended motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I don't see anyone else in the chat box. I haven't heard anyone speaking against the amendment. So I will assume that everyone is in support of it. I'd give it a second. Yeah, thank you, Teresa. So the motion or the proposal is on the floor, and I don't see anyone speaking against that either. So I will give that a second as well. Okay, happy to say that that is unanimous. So moving on, any further matters rising? Oh, sorry, City Solicitor.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, there was the issue that was question that was raised by Councillor Doyle just there. Members, a legal opinion was sought on foot of that and was received from Kevin Morgan, BL. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a note here of how or if indeed the outcome of that was circulated to members. So apologies if it has not been. Briefly, members, the conclusion in relation to the opinion is that it was very unlikely that the council would have standing to challenge the utility regulator's decision. The council wouldn't be able to show a sufficiently strong case, and that there would be any challenge that would be brought would be speculative and carry significant costs implications for the council members. So if that hasn't been circulated, members, I'm happy to arrange and make sure that paper is brought forward to GNSP in September just to provide a more detailed update in relation to that.
Thank you, Philip. And Councillor Doyle, briefly, if you may.
Very briefly, Mayor. No, thank you, Philip. We did get the presentation, which you did send around to everybody, but I think the discussion just at the time was we would get a wee bit more detail on it. So if you could do that paper, that would be really much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any other matters arising from the minutes of governance and strategic planning? No. Okay, moving on to the open minutes of the planning committee held on Wednesday, the 6th of July. Could we get a proposer and seconder for accuracy?
Proposed, John Boyle.
I second it.
Okay, I think Councillor Boyle and Councillor Mooney was in to second before you, Alderman Breslin, but
No problem.
thank you. And matters arising, I see Councillor Logue in the chat box. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The matter that I want to speak about is, sorry, just bear with me a minute. It's the listed building consent, and the notice that was sent, that has to be sent to the department, regarding the committee's recommendation to not accept the planning officer's recommendation. An email was sent out with an attached letter to be sent to the department regarding this matter for our attention. And if we wanted to have any comments on it, which I did, and I emailed back, my first comment would have been about the inclusion of the notice that was received to the planning office after we made our decision, and that wasn't in part of the decision making process. So my question around the including that representation to the department at this time, I understand that if the matter is called in, then all correspondence needs to be submitted, but the inclusion at this time, I didn't get a satisfactory response to that. In fact, I got no response to that query at all. I did also request that the letter not be sent until the minutes of the council meeting and the numbers of how the committee voted go with that correspondence. So the planning officer did come back and say yes, that they would wait until the full council before that correspondence was sent. However, it's on the minute of the actual meeting too that I do now. I have issues with this. This application came in two parts. One for the listed building consent, which needs to go to the department, and the other for the actual type of windows to be installed in the Emerton building. Now, I do find the minutes very much wanting regarding the discussion that occurred in the planning committee that made, I suppose, how the planning committee came to their decision. And I feel that if the minutes as they are presented today go forward to the department, that they really undermined the decision process within the planning committee. It is not really stating our case. And if I was a department official reading the correspondence that was to be sent, then I feel it's loaded against the committee's decision. And I know that's a very strong word, or strong terminology, sorry, not word. But I do feel that, and I hope that other members of the planning committee can agree with me in this, that the minutes are far short of what was discussed and why we reached the decision we did. And therefore, I am looking for some sort of more detailed minutes to be sent with that correspondence, and also to ask for legal advice if that correspondence that came in after we made our decision and wasn't part of our decision making process, should that be sent to the department? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. I see Councillor Doyle in the chat box, and then I will bring in the city solicitor around some of your queries. Go ahead, Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Logue for bringing this up. I'm not a member of planning, and I don't normally comment on these issues, but I had a number of queries from former colleagues of mine in the built environment with regards to this decision. And actually, whenever I actually spoke to Councillor Jackson about it, and when he clarified to me what the committee had actually done, everybody was happy enough. But I think the minutes, I think Patricia's right, the minutes don't seem to reflect the overall discussion that took place, because I think that's where some of the concerns that were relayed to me were raised. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring in Councillor Mooney and Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor. Just upon reflection, I'm listening to Councillor Logue here. I did look at the minutes prior to the meeting, and I know that really what it basically says is that the committee overturned the officer's recommendation basically on the precinct of the history of the planning of that building, but there was a much more detailed and discursive explanation put forward by myself as a proposer, and Councillor Jackson, who was the seconder, and other members did speak on it. So upon reflection and upon hearing Councillor Logue and her view on this, and the reason why she would see more explanation as being beneficial. Obviously, if it is called in, then part of that, part of the package, so to speak, that will be sent to the DFI will be our minutes as well. So in light of that, it will be probably feasible for the minute to be reflected in a much more expansive way. And upon that, I would support Councillor Logue's ask in this regards. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor. And as you and all members will know, Mayor, it's not unusual, of course, that the minutes of committee meetings are abridged versions, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it, of what was said, albeit that the planning committee decisions are extremely abridged, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. Mayor, might I make a suggestion and perhaps even a proposal, if you could bear with me on it, and that would be perhaps if I could propose that we submit a full transcription of the debate as it was to the department by way of, I suppose, moving forward with Councillor Logue's concerns around it. I too would share that particular view, and I think a full transcript of that would certainly help to bring some degree of clarity to the logic applied to this by the committee. So I'm proposing that we do that, Mayor, if that's at all possible.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. I'm going to bring in the city solicitor just on those points.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, members, in terms of the minutes that are here today, those have now been proposed and seconded and ratified. So as accurate, I think what members are asking is that some additional information be provided, which would supplement what is within the minutes, to provide a bit more detail in and around the rationale for the members' decision. The information which has to be provided to the department in relation to matters such as this is set out in the notification of applications direction. Now, in other types of application, one of the things that has to be provided is a statement setting out council's reasons for proposing to grant planning permission. That isn't something which is specifically required in terms of this particular type of application, but I'm sure the officer team can work together to provide such a statement and add it into the correspondence which goes to the department, which would then supplement the minutes which have been ratified. The other question then that was raised was in relation to the additional documentation which had been received post the council's decision. The council is obliged to supply a copy of any representations which have been made to the council in respect of the application. That's something which the council is directed to do. It does not matter, I'm afraid, members, when that is received, whether it is received before or after the council has made its decision. Such representations are valid until such time as the green form is issued, which obviously it hasn't been in this particular case, so that representation does have to be submitted. But we will work with the officer teams in terms of preparing a summary statement which will supplement the minutes in relation to this case. We will submit the minutes together with that supplement, and certainly it would be, it certainly is something which we have done in the past to provide a link to the meeting, which, as you know, would be recorded on YouTube, provide a link to the meeting so that the entire meeting can be viewed and is formally presented to the department as part of the things that they have to consider in reaching a decision in relation to the matter.
Thank you, Philip. Councillor Jackson, same issue?
Yeah, well, it's a similar issue, Mayor. It's on the issue around correspondence, and I understand that the planning committee is different from any other committees in council, but it's still a committee of council, and that it would be in what I find very strange in terms of correspondence, and I know it was raised under chairperson's business at that particular meeting, is that any correspondence from the committee or from council in relation to planning matters are brought to members' attention prior to being sent out. But it's on the same vein, because it would be very hard to comprehend that if correspondence from any other committee of council directly undermined decisions the council had taken on a matter, any other business of council, I think any correspondence in relation to that would defend the decision of council. What I've found very frustrating, particularly over recent times, is that the correspondence from council in relation to decisions of planning matters undermines the decision the council, and it directly, for instance, in relation to some of the planning applications the council have passed, that council have went on to notify the EFA in relation to, it starts off by listing all the reasons why the committee should have refused it, and that to me completely undermines the decision that had previously been taken. There's certainly a disconnect between the correspondence that's been issued on behalf of the committee to the committee itself. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to raise that, and I hope that officers take that on board, and now that the mechanisms in place that members have sight of it, gives us the opportunity to address it. But on the same vein, as a member of council, I would be concerned with some of the correspondence that's been issued on our behalf in relation to planning matters, and it does need to be addressed. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks, Mayor. And again, briefly, again, share that particular view as expressed by Councillor Jackson. It's certainly something that I personally feel perhaps needs some degree of thought. If we're going to be, if it's going to be sent up the road, for want of a better way of putting it, then clearly the views expressed by the committee should come first, above and beyond. We as a committee have sat there, we've thrashed it out, and that needs to be explained to the department as and when these particular matters are referred on to them. So I share that particular perspective. Mayor, on the foot of the explanation given from the city solicitor, I don't feel now that it's necessary that my proposal for a full outlining of the position needs to be sent up the road. As the city solicitor did point out, that the link to the full conversation will be provided for the department's benefit anyway. So if they're so disposed, of course, then they should be listening to the whole debate as it was, and the logic that was applied to that particular application, and indeed all future applications as well. So thank you for that, Mayor. I won't delay the meeting any further.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle, and I think that's a good point that the correct link needs to be included in any correspondence. Moving on, if there's no more matters arising from that meeting, and we will go to the reconvene planning committee held on Thursday the 7th of July for accuracy. Proposer and seconder.
I propose it.
Thank you, Alderman Bresson. Seconder.
Sean Mooney.
Sean Mooney, thank you. And any matters arising? No. Okay, moving on to the special meeting of the Health and Communities Committee held on Monday the 18th of July. Could I get a proposer and seconder for accuracy to begin with?
Councillor Farrell.
Councillor Farrell, and a seconder?
Michaela.
Councillor Boyle, thank you. Matters arising, sorry, Councillor McGowan, I'm assuming that's business and culture. I'll wait till we get to that. Any matters arising in terms of the special health and communities? No. Okay. Moving on to the monthly business and culture held on Tuesday the 19th of July. If I could get a proposer and seconder for accuracy.
Councillor Farrell.
Councillor Farrell, seconder.
Councillor Cusack.
Councillor Cusack, thank you. Matters arising, Councillor McGowan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for letting me on. Just on the actual proposal, just for accuracy, and I'll borrow a term from Patricia, the minutes are a wee bit wanting. I had asked that all spend, including income and expenditure, and a list of all tier 1 and tier 2 be given, so that we would know who we give public money to. I think that needs to be corrected in terms of accuracy. The minutes very light on that. So it was very clear, all spend, all income as well, from sponsorship, and a list of all tier 1 and tier 2, particularly any organisations that have received money. That's all I want to say, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan. Councillor Logue.
Mayor, and it's under BC 120/22, and it's paragraph 6, and it's saying that I spoke about the many businesses that you know are receiving are making lots of money. I would want that changed because I don't think that reflects fully what I said. I was talking about certain businesses, such hotels and the like. So could I have that many to some? I think that more or less reflects what I was trying to say, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. Any other matters arising from the minutes? No. Okay, moving on to the monthly Environment Regeneration Committee held on Wednesday the 20th of July. If I could get a proposer and seconder for accuracy.
I'll propose them.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Seconder.
Councillor Mckee.
Thank you, Councillor McHugh. And any matters arising from these minutes? Okay, moving on to the monthly Health and Communities Committee held on Thursday, the 21st of July. Could I get a proposer and seconder for accuracy?
Farrell.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. And any matters arising, I see Alderman Devaney in the chat box. Go ahead, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and it's in around the issue of the community centre fund, venue funding. And as you see from the minutes, I had raised concern in around the rural DEAs, and excuse me, at the previous meeting I did raise concerns in around 4 centres that were from the PUL community. But Mayor, I do understand that, look, there isn't enough funding in the pot there. And you know, I welcome the working group that's coming up to work on, see how we can help. My worry was, and around the PUL community ones, especially for me, was that, you know, some of them may close if there is no financial help there. But Mayor, you know, when I look at the overall situation, when we look at, you know, take our young people, 60% are from the urban area, 40% are from a rural area. And Mayor, you know, for myself as a rural councillor, would I say I'm getting a fair share of the money coming from DFI? I would say no. When I look at the 2020 figures and around, and look, when I talk about neighbourhood renewal, I don't doubt that these groups are doing a good job, fantastic services and stuff like that there. But when you see some of the groups that were able to apply for the 12,000 funding, which is keeping the door open in many of our rural centres and places, when you see, when you look at the types of money they're receiving from DFC, some of them receiving 40,000 up to well over 300,000. And Mayor, I think the question has to be asked, you know, a group earning in around that type of money, should they be able to apply for funding through the city, the venue fund for that £12,000? Because many of those who have received that substantial amount of money are receiving running costs anyway. And when you look at the total figure for 2020, because it's a 3-year cycle that the figures, and when I looked at the figures, and I stand to be corrected, the total amount for the neighbourhood renewal partnerships comes to a figure of 5.6 million. Now, that's not including money that comes in from council and maybe other departments like health or PHA, but that is a substantial amount of money. And Mayor, I'm not, reiterate once again, I'm not saying that the organisations aren't delivering. I'm sure they're delivering good programmes. But what I'm asking, Mayor, is, you know, when you look at the inequality of the funding that rural groups get here, and just raising that concern. And look, I look forward to the working group, because, you know, once we get this year in, and we have to get it right and around, because, you know, we looked when the working group is set up again by the end of this year. We'll be setting up by next time. We'll be setting up a 3-year term, and it's about getting it right, Mayor, for those rural groups. And it's something I will be raising at the working group and around the issues about the lack of funding. And I do appreciate our officers have said at the meeting that they've written to DERA and the lottery and others, and just be, you know, I would like to be hopeful that there would be a listening ear there to support our rural community groups out there, because some of them may close, and that's the last thing we need for delivery of services in rural areas. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Harkin.
Thanks, Mayor, for letting me in. And yeah, you know, as we said, like one of the main issues for this council has been doing everything we can to try and protect people in a cost of living crisis. And I've spoken to some constituents recently about issues that are I find quite concerning in relation to some of our housing associations. And I just want to again put in a proposal for us to consider that I would like people to support. And it's basically this: there are some people who have been threatened with repossession or eviction by a housing association because of arrears, bedroom tax arrears that they find themselves in. And from my conversations with them, these people have done absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, they've done everything right in relation to downsizing, and they weren't even aware that the bedroom tax was here and that they would be costed for it. And so these arrears for them have come out of nowhere, and they're getting threatened with eviction. And I just find that this treatment is absolutely shocking, and I'm worried that it's happening. I'm worried that it is happening to too many people, and it shouldn't be happening right now in a cost of living crisis. It's bad enough that it would happen at any time, but for this sort of stuff to be happening at a time when we as a council are doing everything we can to try and protect people, and we have some organisations operating in this manner, is just an injustice. So I think we should write to the housing associations and ask them to clarify their repossession policies in relation to bedroom tax arrears, and to also find out if they if a tenant was to utilise a debt relief order, if that would potentially constitute a breach of contract. contract, because I've also heard this, that if a tenant tries to use a sort out a debt matter, that instead of the housing association working with them, this becomes a matter then of breach of contract, which I think is absolutely wrong as well. So I think for us, we should ask the housing association if they can clarify where they stand on these issues. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. If you give me 1 second, I confer with the City Solicitor. Sorry, Councillor Harkin, I just spoke with the City Solicitor in relation to this motion or to this proposal, and I would again rule that at this time it doesn't directly flow from the minutes of the meeting, so I would ask that it is brought back as a notice of motion to a later meeting. So unfortunately I can't accept it at this time, but a good issue, and please bring it back. Thank you. Moving on, any other matters arising? Okay, if there is no further matters arising from the Health and Communities Committee, we will move into confidential.
Proposed, Mayor John Boyle.